American Comics, opening sign in Accelerator. Chapter 276. Levi's called Clarice to swim. Clarice looked at Levi in the water so calmly, a little envious, and after swimming for a while, Clarice couldn't help it. Vice, can you teach me to swim? Levi swam nimbly in the water and heard Clarice's words. There's no problem, definitely. Start now. Yuriko heard the words of the two on the side and raised her hand. Vice, big brother, I want to learn too. Oh, let's come one by one. It's very simple. You're sure you'll learn it quickly? Levi had no problem teaching and started teaching Clarice. Took her to a slightly shallower place and removed the swimming ring from her body. After a few words about the essentials of action, the class officially began. Clarice was still relatively talented and waited for me, and quickly grasped the point. 273 but not very skillful. Levi stood by and held Clarice's stomach with one hand, letting her get used to it slowly. There are also many love paths around, but everyone's eyes are easily attracted by the two of them. No way. The combination of handsome men and women is very eye-catching everywhere. Some girls dislike their boyfriends even more after comparing them, and Levi's doesn't look very secure like Levi's. Standing in the water is very stable, and the day point is not affected by the waves. Clarice swam in the water for a while and became a little more proficient, so she wanted to try it herself. Vice, I want to try it myself. Hearing this, Levi slowly withdrew his hand holding Clarice. There is no problem, definitely, you try. Levi stood by and watched Clarice's movements, and if there was any problem, he could help him immediately. After swimming around, Clarice was already very skilled and a little more daring. Vice, I learned. Levi's looked at her smile and gave her thumbs up. Very good, very fast learning. Clarice was very happy to hear the compliment, and swam twice in the water to return to Levi's. Seeing that she was almost there, Levi's called Yuriko, who was standing on the shore, and changed to a shallower place. No way, Yuriko's current height is not enough, because of her safety. Yuriko came down from the shore when she heard Levi's call her name, standing beside Levi in anticipation. Levi retaught me the same way she had just taught Clarice, and Yuriko was quick and savvy when I learned. After studying for an hour and a half, I have almost mastered it. Levi saw that the situation was about the same, and let the two go swimming on their own, and he went ashore to rest. Levi's went ashore and sat on a beach chair not far away to drink water, and from his left came a boldly dressed, hot-haired blonde girl. Walked straight to Levi's side. Handsome, are you alone? Levi's knew what he wanted to do when he saw the woman's eyes, and unceremoniously refused. It's not. But the woman's goal is Levi, and definitely won't just give up. Biting his lower lip, his expression was faintly seductive, but it was very high level and a feeling of wanting to say goodbye. Levi's knew from the look of her that she must have hooked a lot of men with this trick, and Levi's could not be interested in such women. If you have nothing to do, you can leave. When the woman saw Levi like this, she knew that he might be angry if she went on, and she didn't continue to entangle. He took out a business card and couldn't help but stuff it into Levi's hand. If you need it, you can contact me. Hungry. Then he threw Levi a wink and left. Levi glanced at the business card in his hand and felt a little unappetizing. He crumpled it up and threw it into the ashtray next to him, just as Clarice came over with Yuriko. That girl just now, do you know Vice? Clarice saw the back of the man and woman leaving, and from the back she knew that it was a very bold person. I don't know, come to ask for directions. Levi's made an excuse to prevaricate, and Clarice didn't ask when she saw that Levi's didn't want to say. Let's go back. I'm a little hungry. Levi's picked up the large bath towel next to him and covered the two of them. No opinion. Let's go back. 011911111 01813835551. It was strange that Scarlet Witch waited in front of Levi's house for 2 days without seeing Levi's. But even so, Scarlet Witch didn't give up and waited for Levi to come back. Quicksilver watched his sister for several days and was a little upset about Levi's move. You don't have to go to see it every day. He will definitely have news at school when he comes back, not to mention that Yuriko also went with her. She hasn't come back now. Levi definitely hasn't come back either. Quicksilver still understood this matter, and now Yuriko is not at school, thinking about where she went. Okay, I know, but we'll have to go to Levi's as soon as Yuriko comes back. I know. I'll pay attention to this matter. Quicksilver nodded and agreed to come down. Scarlet Witch was relieved that he didn't go to Levi's door every day. Levi took Yuriko and them to play here for 3 days before the giant returned to school. As soon as they got back to school, Cyclops knew, and Cyclops came to them. Oh, you're having fun, Vice. Do you know how much work you've left for me? Levi's was indeed a little distracted when he heard this, but he really didn't want to deal with these things. And the others also handled it well, and Levi's was relieved of them. Mr. Coaster, the greater the ability, the greater the responsibility, and I am very relieved to hand over these things to you. Coaster glanced at Levi's, knowing that he was saying this to coax himself. In this way, your ability is much more than mine, and these things should be handed over to you in 5.5. Levi's heard this and began to act. Mr. Coaster, how can I compare to you? I am not all taught by you. Cyclops felt a little more relieved when he heard this, and the tropic shifted away from this matter. Hey, Are you going to the beach for fun? It feels like it should be a good game. It's great, teacher, you should try. Probably relax yourself can also be regarded as a recharge. Levi picked up the conversation and said to Cyclops, I'll definitely try it when I have the chance. But I'm not bad now. Now Cyclops is not very busy, and things are now shared by other people. Cyclops also doesn't handle a lot of things, and such days are the teacher feels comfortable. Do you want to stay and eat? Levi's asked in passing, and it's almost time for dinner. Chapter 277 Scarlet Witch's Apology. Cyclops had no opinion and nodded. Since you have all invited, I will definitely not refuse. Seikami, prepare an extra pair of bowls and chopsticks and coast to Sensei lunch. Seikei was processing ingredients in the kitchen, and when he heard this, he moved and walked out of the kitchen. Good master, my side will prepare it. Seikei seemed to sense something when he finished saying that he was about to go back to the kitchen, and stopped his steps to continue to the kitchen. Master, someone at the door seems to want to see you. After speaking, Seikei showed Levi's the monitoring at the door, and the two people standing at the door Levi's also knew. Now Levi's has the energy to see these two men. You let them in, I'll see what they have to say. After Levi's finished speaking, Seikei let the two in, and Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver appeared in front of the audience. Scarlet Witch didn't expect Cyclops to be here, and he was a little nervous at the sight. Cyclops didn't show anything, and 100,000 to two people also sent a hello. Hey, I know you guys. Vice recruited you, right? Are you still used to it at the academy? If there is anything unaccustomed to it, we can boldly say that our school can make appropriate adjustments. Cyclops is very human on this point, accepting input from students, and synthesizing and making adjustments when the time comes. Thank you, we are very happy with the place. No opinion. Cyclops laughed a little. Oh, that's great. It means we're still doing pretty well. Levi's didn't know when he saw Cyclops continue chatting, and interrupted the chat of the three of them. Did you two come to me for something? Let's go to the conference room now. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver looked at each other when they heard Levi's, then followed Levi's to the study. Levi sat down at the coffee table placed in the study and motioned for the two to sit down together. Say, what do you want to do? What are you coming to me for repeatedly? Scarlet Witch heard this and pushed Quicksilver, who was not moving beside him. Hi. Quicksilver originally is a little unconvinced, but now that he is pushed by his sister, there is no way but to force it. Quicksilver stood up, walked straight to Li Heng, and bowed a very perfect bow. Sincerely apologized in front of Levi's. I'm sorry, I apologize to you for what I did before. After speaking, he kept his head down and did not look up, waiting for Levi's response. Levi's was stunned by Quicksilver's sudden action, and glanced at the two when he heard Quicksilver's words. You guys came to apologize? Quicksilver was a little angry at Levi's hesitation, and Scarlet Witch saw a precursor to Quicksilver's anger. Stepping forward and standing in front of Quicksilver, he looked at Levi's. Yes, we came to apologize to you. It was indeed us who were wrong before. Levi's had no other reaction when he heard this. Knowing that these two people will not apologize because of their conscience, it must be because they are worried that he will target them. He knew this in his heart, but he didn't say it clearly. Sometimes proper concealment is also a virtue, mainly because Levi feels that this matter is not very important. The two parties are not in an equal position, and in the end, what they want to do is up to Levi alone. Well, Levi's did not say whether he accepted or did not accept the apology, and after an ambiguous response, he pushed the door and planned to go out. Scarlet Witch saw Levi's like this and tried to reach out to stop him, but Levi passed by as if he hadn't seen Scarlet Witch's hand. He walked straight past her and walked to the door. I suggest that if you have nothing to do, you should go back as soon as possible, and I will leave first. Quicksilver was a little confused to see Levi go like this. Did he forgive him? Quicksilver didn't expect it to end like this, and he had planned to suffer some humiliation. Scarlet Witch was also a little confused as Levi waited for me to think, watching his back as he left. Let's go back first, and talk about it later. Quicksilver nodded. That's all for now, and for the rest of the case later. Levi's returns to the restaurant. Cyclops sees Levi alone and it's always strange. What about your two students? They have something, so they go back first. Cyclops didn't ask much and nodded in greeting Levi's. Don't say it, you hurry up, we'll wait for you alone. Levi's was a little amused when he heard this. Mr. Coaster, are you in such a hurry? No way. The lunch prepared by Seikei looks so tempting, I can't wait. Cyclops didn't take Levi's teasing to heart, and his eyes were on the plate in front of him. I'll be here right away, you guys wait for me. After saying that, Levi's body disappeared into a room, which made Cyclops very curious. What did that guy do? After asking, Cyclops saw Levi's reappear in sight, holding a bottle of wine in his hand. This is a long time that I have treasured for many years, and everyone will taste it today. Cyclops took the bottle from Levi's hand and carefully examined the font on it. Hey, this wine is not cheap. Then I will not be polite today. 717 Levi nodded in agreement with Cyclops. I must be using good wine to entertain you. Open it and try it. Saka on the side moved, took the bottle from Cyclops' hand and opened it, and found a utensil to sober up first, so that the best taste of the wine could be brought out. Pinch the time and pour a glass for each of them, and Cyclops takes a sip of the wine in his hand first. As I expected, very good wine. If the teacher likes it, don't be polite, drink more. Levi's is still generous in this matter, and by the end Cyclops walked away. The soles of his feet were not a little vain. Staggering towards his house, Levi stood on the sidelines and watched a little worried. Teacher, is there really no problem with you doing this? Do you want us to send you back? Cyclops shook off Levi's hand. I'm alone. There is no problem. You guys go back quickly. After saying that, Cyclops waved his hand and continued to move forward, just not letting Levi send them. Seeing this, Levi was a little helpless, and followed Cyclops far behind. Although Cyclops is also strong, Levi is still worried that something will happen to him on the way. Fortunately, there was a thrill along the way, and Levi's did not follow him when he saw that he arrived home safely. Chapter 278 Queen Hela. Levi's plans to return to his home after seeing that nothing is going on here. He is a little drunk now, just a little blushing, nothing else. Levi's returned home to find a new visitor to the house, and he recognized it immediately. Thor, why are you here? You've taken care of everything about Asgard. Thor frowned, and did not answer Levi's words immediately. He felt something bad in a few words. There must be nothing good about Thor every time this expression comes, and Levi's is used to it. This guy is a big moving trouble, but no way. The first thing Thor thought of must be Levi's. Don't show that expression. There is something you just say. Levi's interrupted Thor's thinking and asked him to answer his own words first. It's a trouble, but I see that you seem to be useless, and everyone can only watch who comes out of this matter. Thor said this very pessimist. But there are some things that affect the mood very much. As long as it's not listening to your and Jane's story, I'm not good. Levi shrugged his shoulders, and Thor visibly stunned when he heard Jane's name. But he quickly reacted, this is my business. I will definitely protect you. After Thor said this, Levi's wanted to laugh a little. Thor's previous embarrassing escape to Earth, Levi has not forgotten it. Thor said this today, and Levi really wanted to laugh. Okay, you just pull it down, grind and chirp. You can quickly say what it is. Levi's then realized that Thor did not have his usual hammer by his side. Oh, what the hell is going on with you? Why is your hammer missing? Levi's had weighed his hammer before, and Thor was inseparable, and Levi's felt a little strange. But a guess also appeared in his heart, and he looked at Thor, who was sitting and did not speak. Hela? Did you see Hela? Thor did not expect that Levi's knew Hela and looked at Levi coldly. How do you know? I haven't told you about this person, have I? Now this matter is not the point. You talk more. I will listen to what the situation is now. Thor told Levi everything he knew, and Levi nodded after listening. Hela's ability is indeed strong, but the weakness is also obvious, and Levi's is afraid to make a decision now to meet him. Tony looked at Levi like this, a little curious. Vice, you look like you found something. It's not that I know anything. It's not that simple to know about it. How are you now? Are you going back? Thor shook his head. Now was not the time to go back, and now he couldn't go back. When Levi saw her like this, he knew that Asgard's situation was too early and it was definitely not Jinhao. Otherwise how could Thor have this expression? Don't talk, I think I know what's going on. You really have a big trouble. Levi's didn't even listen to this now, interrupting what Thor was going to say. He was going to talk to Cyclops about it, but he had just sent Cyclops back. Now that Cyclops definitely hasn't woken up, Levi's thought for a moment and didn't go to Cyclops. You are like this now. Do you know if Hela will come to the planet? Thor shook his head. He didn't know what was going on with Hela. He couldn't even contact Asgard's people right now. Levi felt as if there was an extra shadow on his head. When I looked up, I saw a pair of very strange pupils, but those eyes were not looking at Levi's now. It was Thor, who was sitting next to him. Thor and Levi's reacted similarly, and did not, thinking that people appeared so quickly. Very wary of Hela's movements, worried about her shot. So you hid here, you are really humiliated. Have you reached such a point? Hela spoke unceremoniously with disparaging words from Thor, and then glanced contemptuously at Levi, who was standing aside. You can only survive with these weak humans. Goodbye, the defeated men. With that, Hela disappeared into the air, and the shadow that enveloped Levi disappeared. Only then did Levi shift his gaze from the sky to Thor's. Man, are you okay now? Thor didn't answer, just stared at Hela leaving the place, with some concern in his eyes. I'm definitely very good. I'm just a little worried about Father and Emperor now. I still plan to go back and take a look. After saying that, Thor planned to leave here and go back to Asgard to see what was going on. Levi's quickly grabbed Thor. You don't have a weapon now. What are you going back for? Can you save them when you go back now? Levi's said this politely, directly questioning the most core matter. Tony also appeared next to the two, and he noticed the situation here earlier, so he came over to take a look. Hey, you two, are you all right now? I just saw that there is a situation on your side, so I came over to take a look. Levi's didn't have anything to do, and it was clear that Hela's purpose was not them this time. I feel good. but Thor is not very good like this, you can see it. Tony also looked at Thor, and he could tell at a glance that it wasn't very good. Thor, if you have something to say, let's all help you solve it together. Levi saw Thor like this and knew that he definitely didn't have the energy to explain this now, so he integrated what he knew and told Tony. It's okay Tony, we help you, you don't have a weapon, but we still have to help you. Tony patted Thor's shoulder comfortingly, reassuring him. Levi stood on the side and watched the interaction between the two. Okay, now everything is false, let's go back and think long term. But Vice, I don't think Thor can afford to wait, let's make a quick decision, right? Tony looked at Levi's. You must know that the ceiling of combat power must be Levi's, but I don't know what chance Levi's has won against him. Levi knew what he wanted to say when he saw Tony's eyes. Hela's recovery ability or the strength of her body are outrageous, and we can't do anything about it for a while. Hela can become the goddess of death definitely has its own advantages, not to mention crushing Thor's hammer. You know, Thor's hammer was not picked up by anyone except Levi's. Chapter 279 Hela's Siege. Thor was in a state of loss after seeing Hela, and he didn't hear what they said. Thor, are you okay now? Tony noticed Thor's distraction and patted Thor's man on the shoulder. Thor was slapped by Tony to find his thoughts. I'm going to go back and take a look. Hela's presence here doesn't bode well. Thor, you had said this, was about to leave, but Levi's stopped him. Wait a minute, I'll go with you too. Thor knew that Levi's was worried about himself, and he was now very grateful. Thank you. Thor couldn't find a better word to say other than those two words. Let's go. Now is not the time to say thank you. Tony saw that the two were about to leave and hurried out. You geese wait, take me too, I want to see it too. Thor had no opinion and nodded. Then let's do it together. After saying that, the three of them all rose to the ground and disappeared in place, becoming a black spot in the sky. The three arrived near Asgard, which was heavily guarded and full of patrolling soldiers, but Levi's could tell at a glance that this was not Thor's men at all. These soldiers all carried an aura of darkness of 833, which was incompatible with this temple of light. The three did not recklessly, but carefully observed the gap between their patrols, intending to find a good time to explore inside. After observing for a while, the three of them also understood the gap between the patrols, and followed Thor to explore carefully. No one here is more determined to understand than him, and the few people have reached their destination without danger. Thor, what is this place? Tony whispered to Sita in the front, and the man carefully dodged a group of patrolmen. This is where my father lives, I want to see how they are now. Thor took the time to answer Tony's words behind him. Tony would feel like he was somehow wrong. Sorry, shouldn't I ask? Levi's remained silent and did not speak. Tony felt that something was wrong and looked at Levi in front of him. But it's a special time, and Tony still hasn't asked. Following the two of them, they saw them put down the two guards at the door. These two people seem to have a very tacit understanding, and their movements are exactly the same. Fast. After dealing with it, they looked at Tony behind them. Tony, what are you still stunned about? Hurry up and keep up. Tony didn't expect the two of them to move so quickly, so he dealt with it at once and followed behind the two. Pushing open the door, Odin sat inside, looking out the window. Hearing the movement at the door, he did not look back and did not say a word. Father, I came to see you, are you okay now? Odin thought he was hallucinating, and he seemed to hear Thor's voice. Immediately he looked back at Thor standing in the doorway and Levi's behind him, and he was sure that he was not hallucinating. This was Thor. Thor, why did you come back? It's not safe here, you'll go to someone else for help. Thor stood in place and did not move. Father, I can't leave you here, where is the queen? We went to her together, and we walked together. You're not a child anymore, don't play with a child's temper. Odin didn't agree with Thor's words and kept letting Thor go. Levi saw such a stalemate between the two, and something would definitely happen if it went on like this. Well, now is not the time to argue, you better take a step back, we can't go when we are discovered. Odin knew Levi was right, and the longer it dragged on, the worse it would be for them. Thor, I order you, leave quickly, don't delay, I won't have an accident now. Seeing Odin's resolute attitude, Levi's knew that he would definitely not leave, and reached out and dragged Thor. Let's go first, and the rest of the matter will be long term. The dragged, Thor knew they were right, and stopped clinging, to let Odin and him go. I see, let's leave now. When the three of them were about to leave, they found that there was a group of soldiers standing outside the door at an unknown time, and it was Hela who was the leader. I'm afraid you won't be able to leave now, it's really a coincidence. Levi and Thor tensed up when they saw Hela. Hela didn't care about their vigilance at all. Kang City took 2 steps forward. You guys are really bold. Just 3 people dare to come here. Hela casually conjured up 2 weapons and rushed towards them. The undead soldiers standing behind Hela did not move, standing in place and watching Hela's movements. Thor has now lost his hammer and can only go up with his bare hands in the face of such a scene. 7. But it's clear that with Asgard, Hela's abilities are infinite. Thor was clearly down, and Tony and Levi's joined the battle, but their addition did not change the situation. Hela played with the three of them so well that even Levi could see that she was teasing them. Levi's knew that fighting like this would only be very bad for them, and he was always looking for time to escape. During the three-person fight, Tony was thrown out by Hela with a mistake and smashed his body against the wall. "Tony, are you alright?" Levi teleported to Tony's side and lifted Tony up from the ground, and Tony coughed twice. "I'm fine, it's fine so far." Levi looked at Thor, who was now completely pressed and beaten by Hela. Hela probably didn't think it was interesting after a while, and stopped standing back in her original position. "You're too weak for you to be as good, sir." Levi keeps an eye on Hela, while he approaches Thor constantly, intending to take Thor directly. I advise you not to act rashly." Hela saw Levi's movement and looked at Levi very oppressively. "What if I have to?" Levi's had already approached Thor after speaking, and disappeared in place with the two. The wolf behind Hela was already ready to bring the prey back. "They can't go far, so give me more searches." Hela was in no hurry and let her men go down to find Thor. Near Bifrost, Levi showed up with two people who now wanted to leave Asgard. "I don't know what is set up here." Levi's spatial teleportation can't go out directly. Levi's thought of this Bifrost. As the three of them walked, Tony's words never stopped. "Thor, is that your sister?" "It's also too strong. What are you going to do next?" Chapter 280 Thor's Disappearance. Thor was still stunned and hadn't heard Tony's words. "Hey, Tony, now is not the time to talk about this. Now is the time to think about how we get out." There were so many patrolling soldiers on Bifrost that Levi's knew they would be noticed as soon as they went out. "It's really a troublesome thing now." Tony also looked in the direction of Bifrost, and the undead soldiers on it flew very much. And there were more people searching the surroundings, and Levi's watched intently for a long time. "There is no gap in their patrols. It seems that we only have to force a breakthrough now." Tony agreed. "Well, I don't have any opinions." After Levi was sure, he began to plan, finding the weakest point of his forces and planning to storm from that place. After arranging it, Levi's waited for the gap in their patrol. "Okay, it's now, let's go." After Levi's finished speaking, the person became an afterimage and rushed out, and Tan crisply solved all the soldiers around him. At this time, there was also a gap in the encirclement. "Hurry up, there is not much time." Tony and Thor escape as planned, and the three exit Asgard and returned to the Blue Star. Levi's went back to his house and drank a glass of water, then poured a glass for each of them. "Let's rest first, and I'll think about the rest when the time comes." Levi saw Thor meditating, and did not bother, knowing that he was thinking of a way. Tony had a lot of questions and had always wanted to ask Thor, but now Thor clearly didn't look in a good mood. "Vice, do you know what's going on? Is that woman really Thor's sister?" Levi nodded. "Yes, but the specific things depend on whether Thor is willing to tell you or not." He didn't say what he knew. After all, it was Thor's own secret. He also asked Tony to ask Thor himself, and Tony saw that the two of them had something to hide from him. After thinking for a while, I decided not to ask about it, and took a sip of the water cup in front of me. "I'm going to find someone. Maybe he can help me now." Thor thought for a long time and didn't know what good way to think of it, and suddenly stood up. His action, very suddenly, blinded Tony. "Wait, who are you looking for?" "Want us to help?" Thor didn't look back. "No, I'll find it myself." With that, Thor disappeared where he wanted to go. Tony still hadn't finished speaking, and looked helplessly at Levi's, who didn't speak. "How can he just go? Do we really not have to worry?" Levi's knew who he was looking for. "It's okay, he'll be back then. It's not late." Seeing such a big-hearted Levi, Tony was completely speechless. "Okay, then let's wait for Thor to come back by himself." Thor meets a spaceship on his way to flight, and a woman covered in alcohol comes down from the spaceship. Opening his eyes, he glanced at Thor in front of him. "Oh, that's you, come with me." After speaking, before Thor could react, he threw the thing in his hand to Thor's neck, took out the control mechanism and directly stunned Thor, and hit him into the spaceship. Levi stayed at home all day without seeing Thor come back and felt that something was wrong. Tony found Levi the next day. "Hey, Vice, did you see Thor back?" Levi shook his head. "A little bad guess. Didn't Thor go looking for you?" "No, I didn't see Thor." "Didn't he come to you either?" The two looked at each other, and the answer was self-evident. Something was definitely wrong. "What the hell? Let's get Thor back quickly." Quasi-Tony did not expect this to happen, and immediately informed the others. The captain and Black Widow soon appeared, and the two arrived at Levi's residence. The two saw Tony's anxious look. "Hey, what's going on with you? Why this expression?" Levi said the matter from beginning to end. It took the owner a while to digest it. "Isn't Thor dangerous in this situation now? But where are we going to look for him when the universe is so big?" Black Widow asked something to the point, and Levi's looked around and saw that there was still someone who didn't show up. "What about Banner? Why didn't you see him?" Middle.0 asked for Flowers 0. "Disappeared after dealing with Ultron. We haven't found a figure now. Do you see him?" Levi's didn't expect so much to happen during this time, and he didn't know it. "I don't know. You haven't told me about this. How can I be clear?" If they hadn't said that Levi's didn't know about this, How could they have known about Banner's tracks? Sorry, we're too busy during this time. We may not have time to talk to you about this matter. Levi interrupted their explanation. Well, now is not the time to explain to me. Let's go to Thor first. Hela is not good for us after she sits on the throne. After all, Hela does not have a kind, protective heart like Thor, and it is thankful that she did not destroy it now. Tony also knew the gravity of this matter and nodded. Let's look for it first, but we can't expect much from this matter. I know. So, now guys, hurry up and get moving. Levi's knew about this, and it was indeed a bit difficult to find Thor in such a large universe. After he finished speaking, he found a spaceship and drove up, taking other people with him by the way. Tony couldn't help but praise when he saw Levi's disappear into the sky. This looks so cool. Let's hurry up and follow along. Cyclops stood at the window to see the trail of the spaceship leaving and drank a drink from his hand. This guy is really positive and very good at handling this matter. Levi's first looked around the neighborhood, found no trace of it nearby, and then he expanded his area. Searching in the nearby galaxy began. Passing where Thor had been caught yesterday, finding what had fallen from Thor, Levi's saw the drop and looked for it nearby. There were no traces of fighting, which was a little strange, so Thor voluntarily followed the person or was attacked from behind. Levi's doesn't have a conclusion now, he can only look at it when the time comes. Levi's chose a direction according to his instincts and moved forward. Halfway through, Tony also sent a video to Levi's, asking about Levi's current situation too. Chapter 281 Find Thor's Clue. I looked for a clue about Thor and am now planning to look around. Levi's spaceship was handed over to Cuckoo to pilot. Levi's poured himself a glass of water, and is still chatting with the two very leisurely. Tony and the captain were sitting on a spaceship, and when they heard this, they planned to go to Levi's. Where are you now? We'll go to you now. Levi said, I'm right here, you can come now. Do you want me to wait for you? No need, we'll come to you now. With that, Tony steers the ship to where Levi's is, and Levi's hears him say that he doesn't have to wait to slow down Cuckoo a little. Tony's speed is not slow, and after a while, Levi also saw the figure. His spaceship grazed Levi's spaceship and flew over, and the two said a 580 hello when they looked at each other. Cuckoo also has his own judgment, and after seeing Tony follow, he starts to speed up. The two spaceships flew side by side, and Tony flew for a while and felt that something was wrong. Vice, are you sure Thor is in this direction? Levi's sat back in his chair, not sure, gut feeling. Let's go and see first. He didn't know where it was, but he chose a place based on his instincts. Tony was a little hard to believe when he heard this, and he didn't find the right words in his head for a long time. If your instincts are wrong, then we are not busy in vain. No, this is not for you to know a wrong option, you can avoid it later. Levi replied righteously, not feeling that anything was wrong. Tony was completely defeated, but now that they've come here, Tony decided to take a look. Maybe what if Levi's is right? Tony could only console himself in this way, following Levi's and then flying forward. The two ships did not know how long they flew. In front of him appeared a planet with many cosmic passages around, and seeing this planet, Levi's knew that this was his destination today. Let's go, buddy, let's go over and take a look. Levi drove the spaceship and rushed up. Tony saw the planet is also a little strange. How did they get here? Just following Levi's all the way, Tony had the feeling that he had been tricked, and Levi's must have known where. The previous thing was to tease them, and it was a little strange for the captain to see that Tony did not move. Tony, are you distracted? Vice is almost out of sight, let's catch up quickly. Tony hears a reminder to catch up with Levi's ship, and Levi's has flown into a pipe. He also followed Levi into the pipeline, and after entering, a city appeared in front of their eyes, and in front of them were rows of ships that were aiming their guns at them, and Levi's did not act rashly when he saw such a scene. Walking out of his spaceship, his attitude was still quite good. You don't have to be nervous, we're just here to find someone. A person walked out of the spaceship at the head, and it seemed that he should be the leader of these spaceships. He stood at the front and looked Levi up and down. Want to recruit? Go inside the prison and look for it. As soon as he finished speaking, Tony and they were already in a state of battle. The atmosphere immediately tensed, and Levi stood in place without moving. I repeat, we have no malice, we just want to come to someone. Levi's words were vaguely threatening, and the leader winced, thinking that he was in his own home, and what else was there to be afraid of? I don't care what you're here for, as long as you come to us, Seika, you'll listen to me. After speaking, he waved his hand. Everyone do it, grab them and give them to Gao Tianzun, he will definitely like it. After the people gave the order, the others also moved, pressing Levi step by step. Seeing their unreasonable appearance, Levi's knew that there was no room for discussion on this matter, and knew that a vicious battle could not be avoided. Seikami, do it. After thinking it through, Levi decided to strike first, and let Cuckoo attack first. Seikami, who heard the command, controlled the laser on the spacecraft. The first to sweep the ship that had fallen over, and after Levi moved, Tony couldn't help it. This action of controlling a spaceship and attacking them undoubtedly aroused the belligerent blood of the people around them. Seeker's people also rushed towards Levi's, and those who rushed in front were unusually fierce. Seeing that he was approaching Levi's, huge amounts of shadow hung over him. The huge amount of fist also swung at Levi's, with a sinister smile on his face, and he could think of how vulnerable Levi's had disappeared under his hands. But things were not what he thought. From Levi's body came huge amounts of anti-shock force, and the hand of Levi's in the supplely department was directly broken. His arm made a teeth-shattering noise. Levi's shook his hand with ease. The obstruction standing in front of him was waved away by Levi's, who was thrown aside like garbage. Levi's calmed the rest of the people who wanted to rush up with this hand, and now there was some hesitation at this time, knowing whether Levi's rushed towards Tony and them. In contrast, Tony is much weaker to watch, and as long as they hold Tony, they can use their lives as a bargaining chip. At that time, no matter how strong Levi is, there is no way, and he must obediently listen to them. After Levi's dealt with the people around him, he looked like the leader standing last, a little impatient. After planning the route, Levi's figure disappeared in place. When he reappeared, he was already behind the leader, pinching his fragile neck. "Stop, or your boss's life may be gone." The soldier who heard the movement looked back and saw that his head was grabbed by Levi's 1.9. And there was no movement in his hand. And the person in Levi's hands is now very instigated. "Wait a minute, we have something to say, don't get excited." He was really worried that with one force from Levi's, he would die at the hands of Levi's. "That's right, what did I say before? I'm just looking for someone here, you guys have to compete with us. Now it's better to take me to meet your boss." Levi knew that this little soldier was useless, and still wanted to go to the High Tanzan in their mouths. This talent is an important person on this planet, and the person who was pinched by Levi's showed a helpless expression. "I can't do this thing, oh my god, we can see it if we want." Levi didn't hear these words. "I don't care about this matter, anyway, we are going to see this High Tanzan in your mouth now." Chapter 282 Gao Tianzun. After thinking for a while, he thought of a solution. "I have a solution, it depends on whether you agree or not." "What way?" "You say come and listen. In this way, you pretend to let me catch it. Gao Tianzun likes you the most to participate in the arena. You pretend to be caught by me. I sell you to Gao Tianzun. You will not be able to meet Gao Tianzun." Levi's would not believe his words, and used ability to directly read the memories of the person in his hand. He did have his own careful thoughts, but this careful thinking was now clearly seen by Levi's. "It's useless." Levi's checked the play and gave him instructions. "Let this person only obediently listen to his own words." After some operation, Levi is much more relieved. Letting go of the man and returning to Tony's side. "Let's go, guys, let's go find that Gao Tianzun." When Tony was about to ask how to find them, he found that the person who had been clamoring to arrest them before was now respectful of Levi's, as if he had been brainwashed. Tony was stunned, not expecting that a person would change so much. Black Widow was the first to follow in Levi's footsteps, then the captain, and obviously they weren't surprised by the scene. The captain hugged Tony and took Tony, who was in a daze, with him. Following the people who led the way, they walked all the way to the tallest building in the middle, which was built very strangely. When they got closer, they saw several human faces on it, and the person who led the way to the front of the building stopped. "A few, Gao Tianzun is inside. I really can't take you inside." Levi stood at the door and looked at the situation inside the building, but the glass did not know what material it was, and he could not see the situation inside clearly. "Let's go in and have a look." Levi's didn't look anymore and turned to look at the person behind him. Black Widow and Tony looked at him and nodded. "Let's go inside and have a look." Levi's is also unusual. He does not enter through the doorway. He flies to the highest part of the building, and rushes towards the building like a shooting star. Black Widow also didn't expect Levi to be so fierce and not enter through the main entrance. Levi's movements not only attracted them, but also alarmed the others in the building. A pair of trained men surrounded Levi's and looked at him warily. After waiting for a while, the surrounding Levi's soldiers separated a road, and those behind them came to the front. Levi's looked at this person and directly began to ask, "Are you Gao Tianzun?" "Yes, what's the matter with you coming to me with such a big move?" Gao Tianzun was already a little angry, and Levi's action was undoubtedly provocative. But now Gao Tianzun suppressed the anger in his heart and asked to reason. If Levi did not give him a satisfactory answer, he will let Levi's know whose territory this is. Not everywhere can be thrown wild. "We're looking for someone. It's a guy who can use electricity. Have you ever seen it?" Gao Tianzun definitely has seen that. Some time ago he taught a good lesson to the hardbones who did not admit defeat. "No, I haven't seen it." When Gao Tianzun answered, he directly vetoed it, and the kid he thought it was still a little interesting, and now definitely will not let it go. Levi's didn't believe his words. "You deceive. You must have seen it. I advise you to hand him over. If we do it, things won't end like this." Levi's didn't want to do it, but there were some people who didn't have the ability to make him angry. "I said I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. What do you think of me as a place? Since you don't want to leave, then leave it to me. Come." After Gao Tianzun finished speaking, the soldiers around him all moved and rushed to Levi's, who was standing in the center. Black Widow they also came up at this time, and all they saw was that everything rushed towards Levi's. Like locusts, Levi was crushed under the ball, and Tony rushed directly to Levi's side to help Levi get out of trouble. Levi's was shocked, and all the people who surrounded him flew back upside down and hit the floor heavily. Tony knocked away the man who flew towards him and walked to the side of Levi's. "Cool, well done." Levi nodded. So, you're not bad." Gao Tianzun saw the two chatting like this, and his face was red with anger. "I want you to pay the price. None of you want to run." Gao Tianzun was really angry. For so long, there was no one like Levi's. This all hit him directly in the face, and this matter is absolutely unbearable. Levi saw that he was unhurried and moved his wrist. "Tony, are you all ready?" Tony put on his mesh and took a battle stance. "I definitely. What about the others? Are you ready?" Black Widow nodded, and the captain gave him a look to signal that he was ready. Gao Tianzun can sit in his position for so long, and he still has his own skills. He can also telepathy, but he can only see 4 people on Levi's side, and he can't feel Levi's. Gao Tianzun immediately understood that Levi's might have the same ability as him, so he couldn't see it. Gao Tianzun, who could not see Levi's, did not start from Levi's body first, but from Tony's body. He didn't first take 227 hands from Levi's body, but he still kept an eye on Levi's movements. In case he is caught by Levi's, it will not be easy to deal with it at that time. The fight between several people is very fast, and the fight is not a few seconds and quickly separates. By the time they separated, Tony and Black Widow weren't in great shape, only Levi wasn't in good shape. Levi saw the 3 of them like this, and if it dragged on, these 3 would definitely be injured. He was more focused on looking for flaws in Gao Tianzun's body all the time, and his mind was like a high-speed computer calculating the flaws on Gao Tianzun's body in front of him. He tried to hit him with one blow. The two fought back and forth, and various dazzling skills collided in the air. The brilliant colors are emitted, and everyone is dazzled by it. Finally, under the attack told by Levi's, Gao Tianzun revealed a flaw. This fleeting flaw was caught by Levi's, and a good blow hit Gao Tianzun's body. He suddenly flew out upside down and hit the wall behind him, knocking through many walls before he stopped his body. Levi stood in front of the broken wall, looking at Gao Tianzun from afar. "How would you like to give it to me now?" Chapter 283 Hulk's hesitation. Gao Tianzun stood up from the cave. "What can you do if I don't give it to you?" "Do it." As soon as he finished speaking, a hole was burned in the floor next to Levi's feet, and it would fall on him if it was a few points higher. This was the naked threat, and Levi's looked back to see the dense spaceships behind him, all the muzzles pointed at them. Gao Tianzun stood up from the ground and patted the dust on his body unhurriedly, lifting his foot and walking out of the hole. "You are quite arrogant, but don't forget whose territory this is." Tony and Black Widow are now looking at Levi's, hoping for something he can do. But under such a scene, Levi did not show a very flustered appearance, and even laughed when he heard Gao Tianzun's words. "This little person, your subordinates are a little few. It's not important to have a lot less, as long as they can catch you. They are very useful subordinates." After Gao Tianzun finished speaking, he walked past Levi's and walked to the front of the Legion. "Now, capture them alive, and I can definitely make a lot of money with them in my arena." Gao Tianzun saw their ability, especially Levi's ability, and now it is fragrant in his eyes. After Gao Tianzun finished speaking, this layered spaceship launched an attack on this Laheng and them. The overwhelming attacks rushed towards them, such an intensive attack, Tony they were all ready to be injured. Black Widow had closed her eyes and waited for the pain to come, but she didn't feel anything unusual for a long time. That's when she opened her eyes and saw Levi standing in front of them. With Levi protecting them, all the attacks from the ship were reflected back. After destroying a lot of spaceships, the battle situation was turned around at once, and now it is the attacking spaceship that is starting to dodge. Gao Tianzun did not expect that Levi still had such an ability, and it was a little heartache to see his down spacecraft. But things have gotten to such an extent that Levi's can't swallow this breath without being taken down. Gao Tianzun increased the number of spaceships and launched an even more ferocious attack on Levi's. Under such a battle, Levi's hair did not shake at all, and his eyes reflected the fire in the sky, like a burning battle spirit. After defending for a while, Levi seemed to be tired of such movements, and flames began to appear from his body. The flames looked like they could melt it all, but Tony and Black Widows, standing next to Levi's, didn't feel any burning sensation. Gao Tianzun felt the taste of danger when this flame appeared, and knew that after letting Levi's use this ability, he would definitely not have any good fruit to eat. Immediately stopped Levi's movements. Wait a minute, I know where your friend is." Levi's looked sideways at Gao Tianzun. "You remember now? Bring people to me, send them into my hands." What Gao Tianzun is afraid of is the flame on Levi's, and now no matter how much he holds back, he can only honestly do what Levi said. Someone was asked to bring Thor over, and by the time the man returned, He had already brought a man in his hand. Thor was very happy when he met Levi's. Vice, you are really a big hero. I really want to love you. Thor was ecstatic, and now he wanted to hug Levi and kiss him, and he thought he couldn't get out. Now Levi's and Tony are heroes, and he's going to thank them for going out. Levi's looked at Thor, and apart from his hair being cut short and a device on his neck, he was not hurt. The device, take it, send it over, and we will end this matter today. Gao Tianzun looked at Levi's with a venomous look in his eyes, but did as Levi's said. After Thor loosened his restraints, without Levi's, he used the people next to him to walk to Levi's. Hey Vice, I saw Hulk here too. Tony was stunned for a moment when he heard this, and did not expect that Banner was also here, and Levi did not speak. His eyes looked at Gao Tianzun, and the meaning in his eyes was very obvious. Gao Tianzun is not stupid, he knows what Levi means. But it is already his limit to put one, and he doesn't want to put the second person. Don't go too far. Doesn't this matter end here? I didn't say that. You defined it yourself. Did you? Levi's didn't admit it, but he didn't say it. It was all Gao Tianzun himself. Seeing that he was about to do something, Levi's casually destroyed a spaceship not far from him. I suggest you better weigh it well, otherwise for the sake of 2 people, you will lose so many battleships. I think it will hurt for those who think about it. Thor, who now has someone to support him, has the confidence to stand by and echo Levi's words. That's right. When you do it, weigh yourself well. Now the right to speak is completely in the hands of Levi's, and Gao Tianzun is restricted everywhere. After thinking for a long time, Gao Tianzun waved his hand and let his hand go down to bring the Hulk. Levi's is also very satisfied to see him so knowledgeable. But this does not mean that Levi is relaxed. He was still very vigilant and trusted Gao Tianzun Levi at all, not believing that he would agree so honestly. The Hulk was brought with him, but the current Hulk is very grumpy and hostile to everyone here. This irritability exploded when he saw Thor, and he wanted to beat Thor regardless of the people around him. Levi frowned when he saw the Hulk like this. What's going on with him now? Don't know us. I know, I am very grumpy. I don't know why I don't believe us very much. Thor knew some, but didn't know why the Hulk didn't trust them. When Gao Tianzun saw the Hulk, some small smile appeared on his face, and it was suppressed in a flash. The people who paid attention to the Hulk did not notice, and Gao Tianzun waved his hand to release the clothes. The Hulk, who was released from the huge amount of deep body, rushed towards Levi's, very aggressive. Tony was frightened by the Hulk's hand and took 2 steps back. Hey, Banner, what's going on with you now? Know us? The Hulk ignored Tony's words and rushed towards Tony with a roar. Without expecting to say a word, Tony rushed towards him, taking 2 steps back and dodging his fist. Levi frowned deeper, wanting to strike and knock him unconscious, which he would take back to deal with. As if sensing Levi's thoughts, Banner took 2 steps back and retreated to Gao Tianzun's side. With a threatening growl at Levi's, Black Widow also saw the Hulk in action. Chapter 284 Rescue Thor. You also see that it's not that I won't let your friend go, it's that he doesn't want to go with you. Gao Tianzun stood beside the Hulk and looked at Levi's. Them. Thor had chatted with Hulk before, and now he was very incomprehensible when he saw his actions. What's going on with you now? Hurry up and come back with us. Hulk didn't speak, panting and looking at them unkindly. I'm not going back with you. Hulk answered Thor's words, and Thor was very incomprehensible when he heard this. Hulk, do you know what you're doing? Why don't you go back? The Earth doesn't need me now. I'm not going back. Hulk was very sure that he didn't want them to go back. Thor himself couldn't persuade him to look at Levi's, wanting Levi to say something to make Hulk change his mind. Levi's didn't say a word from beginning to end, watching Hulk's reaction. You want to stay here? Hulk. After saying that, it was Black Widow's, who walked out behind Levi's. Hulk reacted to Black Widow's voice and looked at Black Widow. I don't know, Natasha Romanoff, that Earth doesn't need me. When the Hulk saw Black Widow's, he calmed down a little and was not as grumpy as when he first saw it. Hulk, the Earth does not need you. 520 but we need you. You see Thor's home is still waiting for us to save. We can't do it by ourselves. We really need your help. The Hulk on Black Widow's side hesitated. His eyes swept over them. Gao Tianzun knew that if he didn't do something again, the final whole card would be gone. Feeling out the mechanism and violently electrifying the Hulk, who was suddenly shocked, lost his mind. Growling viciously, Black Widow took 2 steps back and frightened by the Hulk's action. Levi supported Black Widow's body from behind, stood at the front, and looked at the grumpy Hulk. He used his mental ability and wanted to appease the Hulk directly, but when using it, Levi's felt hindered. Levi looked at Gao Tianzun on the side, and he knew that this was Gao Tianzun's ability. Gao Tianzun met Levi's eyes, which would be a little proud. How? I have brought you people. He himself did not want to go with you, and now you also quickly disappear into my planet for me. Tony was a little excited when he heard this, and wanted to rush out, Baba, to teach him a good lesson, but was stopped by the captain next to him. Don't be impulsive, this matter depends on how Vice handles it. Levi nodded. Then more of your hospitality today. We are indeed going back. The most incomprehensible when hearing these words were Thor and Iron Man, who looked at Levi in disbelief. Vice, how can you do this? Now at this time, Levi did not want to explain, summoned Sakayu and took Thor on the spaceship. When Saka came, he brought Tony's spaceship with him, and Tony now has to reluctantly get on the spaceship. I plan to wait until I go back and talk to Levi's about how I can give up Hulk like this. Levi, who got on the spaceship, disappeared into the sky at once, and Vanny's spaceship followed Levi's ship. Vice, what is the reason? You just gave up Hulk. Without a female voice, Levi steered the ship out of Saka. And just outside Saka, there are countless warships waiting in flight. Levi's took them out and saw these battleships, and the unwitting Tony was very vigilant, thinking that it was an ambush under Gao Tianzun. But at this time, Levi's video invitation lit up, and the castle automatically picked him up, appearing above his Cyclops face, and he said hello to Thor when he saw that he was feverish. Vice, I have already called the battleship you need. What are you going to do? Thor was stunned when he heard this, and his eyes fell on Levi's. Vice, why don't I understand what you said? It's simple, hit Saka, after Levi explained. He turned to talk to Cyclops, and Thor didn't think that Levi was here for real. Vice, should we think about it? Thor hesitated, and Levi skillfully let Sakami give instructions, distracting himself from talking to Thor while giving instructions. Don't worry, I'm not trying to invade them. It's just that this Gao Tianzun I don't think it's suitable for this position. After giving the command, Levi's rushed to the front in the spaceship and flew back into Saka with the fleet behind him. Levi's movements definitely Saka also noticed and quickly defended. But they were no match for Levi's fleet, and Levi surrounded the edifice where Gao Tianzun had been before. Levi saw Gao Tianzun come out and greeted him in a friendly manner. Meet again. Is this time okay? Gao Tianzun looked at Levi with heavy eyes, and now he couldn't wait to eat Levi's. Levi's didn't react to his gaze, but looked at the freed slave. People are slaves who are high in heaven and entertain, and there are many large and small wounds on their bodies. When they saw the surrounded Gao Tianzun, they all showed joy, and Levi's let everyone out. You can go. Definitely you can also let someone take the place of Gao Tianzun, and the choice of person is up to you. Levi didn't want to care about the planet, and it was up to those of them who knew about it. Everyone, you look at me, I look at you. I have a choice in your heart, and you all look at the same person. Seeing that they had a choice, Levi's did not interfere in the matter. Since you have chosen, let's do what you come. And, Hulk, go home. The Hulk, who was standing in the crowd, heard these words and raised his head and looked at Levi's, who was standing high. For a while, my mood was very complicated, and I didn't know where to start. The people standing behind Levi's all looked at Hulk. Man, you really should go home, go back and see. Things were almost done, and Levi took the people back to the academy. Cyclops stood in the office and smiled when he saw the battleship returning. I don't know what he went to do, but it's good to come back safely. When Levi came back, he came to Cyclops, and Cyclops met Thor behind Levi's. You guys came back to see? Thor, you're back too? I haven't seen you for a long time. Chapter 285 Rescue Heimdall. When Thor heard Cyclops say this, he was a little embarrassed. He was taken away, and then Levi they came to rescue him. Just as Thor was looking for an excuse, he suddenly heard Heimdall's voice. Thor, where are you now? The people of Asgard need your help. Where are you now? What's the situation now? Thor was a little surprised to hear Heimdall's voice, and did not expect to be unable to contact Heimdall. I'm in a cave in Asgard right now. I've moved ordinary people here, and we need your help now. I'll go back right away. You don't have to worry. Thor heard this and knew that Asgard's situation must not be very good now, and Heimdall's voice sounded very tired and anxious. When Thor ended the conversation, he saw that everyone present was watching him. Guys, I need your help. So far, the situation is not very good. Tony, who was fighting alongside Thor, was very understanding. We definitely will help you. The friend's business is our business, right, Vice? Levi's didn't expect this to happen to his head, and nodded as if he looked at Tony. Definitely. Are we ready to go now? Thor looked at them with gratitude in his eyes, and it was nice to have a group of friends to help him at this time, not to be alone. Okay, let's go now. I'm afraid Heimdall can't wait for it now. Levi nodded. Okay, let's go now. Thor nodded, and the group went out again. Cyclops looked at their backs as they left and shook his head. It's good to be young, and you can still have energy now. Once a few people appear in the clearing, Thor plans to use Bifrost to return to Asgard, but Bifrost did not respond. Thor tried a few times and did not respond. A little strangely. Logically speaking, the Rainbow Bridge should not be closed. Thor couldn't figure it out and reconnected to Heimdall. Dial, why didn't Bifrost respond? I tried many times and didn't see him react. I took the big sword from Bifrost and prevented Hela from going to the 9 realms, otherwise it would not have been Asgard who would have affected the war. Heimdall explained why, and Thor knew why, but there was no other way to go to Asgard right now. So what do we do now? How can we help you if we can't go? Don't worry, on Saka, the largest portal, you can't enter Asgard from there. Heimdall definitely prepared a rear hand, Otherwise the civilians of Asgard would not have survived under Hela without Thor's help. I know, we'll rush over now. Levi stood aside and looked at Thor. Looks like a way has been found. How? Yes, we still need to go to Saka now, and the biggest transmitters go to Asgard. Levi's had no problem hearing this, nodded, and called out his spaceship. Okay, now let's go. Time waits for no one. Tony and the Desolate Man found a spaceship to sit on, and Levi rode to the dust and rushed first. The people behind also followed, and they all turned into arcs and disappeared into the sky. According to Heimdall, they came to Saka. When the current Saka is still recovering after the war, the Yin family is dealing with what Gao Tianzun left behind. Someone saw Levi's ship, and they recognized the logo on Levi's ship. Their eyes were on the spacecraft flying over them, and when they saw them return, the leader they pushed thought they still had something to do. Just as they were wondering whether to say hello to them, Levi flew straight through them towards their planet's largest portal. Disappearing inside the portal in the blink of an eye, the leader was relieved to see them disappear. And he thought they had come to the door because of something. Just passing by, he was a little relieved. Everyone go back to their own business, nothing happens here. Hearing this, others also turned their heads to do their own thing. Levi and Tony disappeared into the portal, passing through the portal and arriving at Adgas. On Hela's side, she had asked where Heimdall was hiding. Zero asked for flowers. Surrounded the place where Heimdall was hiding with his men, and the soldiers opened the hole. But there were already people going to the empty building, and Hela was a little angry at being teased. Fenrir, hurry up and find them for me. The giant wolf that heard the command jumped out from behind Hela and sniffed the ground. Follow the smell to Heimdall's hiding place. Heimdall is in the deepest part of the cave. He leaned against the wall to feel the situation outside, and behind him was a group of civilians with little ability. Panic was written in everyone's eyes. They had never encountered such a thing before. Now there is also a huge amount of panic surrounding them, and everyone is very uneasy. 0. What's more, their opponents are still so strong, they feel even more hopeless. The giant wolf approached them step by step, and in the quiet atmosphere they even heard beasts' gasps. Some people have even closed their eyes sadly, intending to bear the end of not being able to look at it directly. And in this case, they heard another sound. Huge amounts of explosions. The explosion was so loud that it immediately attracted Hela and them. Seeing the fire on Bifrost's side, Hela's face sank, and in a blink of an eye, she disappeared in place. The rest of the people did not stand still and kept up with Hela. The movement on Bifrost's side was caused by Levi's, who were dealing with the soldiers who came to stop them. Their combat effectiveness is very strong, and after a while, all the soldiers around them are cleared out. Probably Thor didn't expect the ease. Solving the last one in his hand, he looked up and saw Hela not far away. Hela was quietly watching him, and Thor also saw her, and the two looked at each other from a distance, with war intent in their eyes. You shouldn't be here, but it's okay, soon you and your partner will disappear. Hela touched her hair, which became a strange shape that I don't know if it was a horn or something, and two weapons suddenly appeared from her hand. Thor knew she was ready to fight. Thor himself took a battle stance, his eyes fixed on Hela. Chapter 286 Thor's Strongest Strike. As everyone huddles, the Hulk follows Levi's plan and finds the civilians that Heimdall has hidden. Heimdall was very vigilant at this time, and gave him a blow when the Hulk appeared, and after seeing the person, he retracted a little force. But the Hulk was still hit. This time the Hulk did not expect. Banner, how did you find this place? Heimdall recognized the Hulk at a glance and withdrew his hand from pressing the Hulk. I'm here to take you away. You guys hurry up and follow me now. Hulk didn't talk nonsense, and immediately said the purpose of his appearance here today. Thor, he's back? Did Thor call you here? Heimdall beckoned the people behind him for them all to come out. Yes, now Thor. They dragged Hela 580. We are leaving quickly. Banner leads them to where they park their ship, and the people behind them are wary of the Hulk, but they trust Heimdall. Followed in the footsteps of the Hulk and headed in the direction of Bifrost. Now Levi and Tony are cleaning up the surrounding waves of soldiers who have been like endless since Hela appeared. After killing one, you can be resurrected, which is too draining for everyone's strength. Black Widow was a little tired from this high-intensity battle, and a loophole accidentally appeared. Levi's reached out to help and cleared all the monsters around her. You hold on, just wait until you see Banner and they appear. Black Widow nodded and wiped the sweat from his forehead. I know, I can still hold on. As soon as she finished speaking, she saw Banner appear in line of sight with a group of people, and he and Heimdall closely protected the civilians behind them. Without letting them receive any damage, they reached Levi's side safely. Vice, we're back. Banner was relieved to see Levi's, and it was much less stressful to have them. Levi's dealt with the soldiers who followed behind them. You guys hurry up and send him to the spaceship to leave. We'll take care of things here. Hela, who was struggling with Thor, saw Heimdall and Levi underneath and she did not allow them to leave. Fenris, stop them. Hearing this, the giant wolf's attention also shifted from Tony's body to Heimdall, who was about to board the spacecraft, and blocked their way with a slight jump. Banner will not hide his strength anymore, and transform into a Hulk. Rushing towards the giant wolf in front of him, The banner that turned into the Hulk not only changed in size, the same change in strength and size, grabbed the giant wolf's tail, grabbed it in the air, and used it to the sea under the bridge. Heimdall took advantage of this gap to take civilians into the spacecraft, and Thor, who had lost his hammer, was now not on the same level as Hela at all. After fighting for so long, Thor's body was already scarred. In the end, Hela hit him hard and was knocked to the ground, landing right at Levi's feet. When Hela saw that Thor had lost his ability, she wanted to take advantage of the victory to pursue and kill Thor in one fell swoop. She also flew down from high in the air, quickly closing the distance between herself and Thor. This scene was seen by Levi's, who stood in front of Thor to block the blow for him. The huge energy generated by the collision between the two cleared everything around, and Black Widow and Tony were thrown and rolled twice on the ground before stabilizing their figures. They stood up and looked at Hela and Levi in the center, and Hela saw that his attack was blocked by Levi's, increasing his strength. Levi's also felt a little strained, but this intensity was still in his range. Hela saw that this trick did not work, and conjured a weapon from his right hand and flew towards Levi's. But the weapon is the same in front of Levi's, and it does not move until a certain distance. Hela saw that one could not succeed, summoned a lot of weapons and rushed towards Levi's. But like the first weapon, you can't advance half an inch around Levi's. Levi casually returned the weapons, and Hela saw this scene and dodged quickly. Evading Levi's return fire, Thor, who was about to lose consciousness on the ground, seemed to see his father in a trance. Thor at this time, as if he had found his faith. He threw himself in front of Odin. Father, I lost my hammer and I can no longer use Thor's power. For Thor's crying, Odin is still the same as Thor remembers, and he opened his mouth to tell Thor, kid, the real power of Thor is not in the hammer, but in you. Thor raised his head when he heard this and looked at Odin, as if he understood something. In Odin's words, Wanja understood. Levi is confronting Hela, and the two are now in a state where there is no way to take both sides. This is Asgard, the source of Hela's power, and here Hela is invincible. There's no way to deal a heavy blow to Hela, and Levi's is because of the multiple abilities he has. And Levi's biggest and the most special ability, Hela found it a bit tricky. Neither of them moved first. They were assessing the other's strength and finding each other's weaknesses, and Thor's changes attracted Levi and Hela, and the clouds in the sky seemed to be brewing something. Levi's thought Thor had fainted and woke up now, but the aura emanating from his body was somewhat dangerous. Thor suddenly opened his eyes, which flashed blue electric light and the sound of explosions. Thor, who stood up, looked at Hela not far away, and the thunderstorm brewing in the jade clouds in the sky had also reached your peak. The purpose of falling violently from the sky is Hela standing in the distance, sensing something different. Hela raised her head 4.8 and looked into the sky, and at this time the thunder and lightning had already arrived in front of her. After a dazzling electric light, everyone looked at where Hela was standing. Hela, who was standing in place, was not hurt in the slightest, and looked at Thor with an unkind look. Good job, but for me, it didn't work at all. Hela's ability is derived from Asgard, and as long as Asgard remains, Hela won't die. Thor didn't expect his strongest blow to bring Hela a painless blow. Levi's had expected it while everyone's attention was on Hela. Casting a look at Black Widow's, Natasha Romanoff noticed Levi's look. Quietly disappeared into the battle, like water droplets blending into the sea. Chapter 287 The Destruction of Adgas. But now the attention is on Hela's side, and no one is paying attention to Black Widow. Levi's used his psychic ability to communicate with Thor. Thor, Black Widow has gone to your father's warehouse. Are you ready? Thor knew what Levi's was talking about. It had been planned before they came, and Thor didn't have any hesitation. There is only one way at this time, otherwise with Hela's current strength, they will not be able to do it at all. None of his strongest blows hurt Hela, so there was no better way. Thor glanced at the civilians behind him. Now that he was completely on the ship, he already had a determination in his heart. I know, now let's do it. After receiving a positive answer, Levi passed the news to Black Widows, who had safely slipped into the warehouse, and hesitation threw his things into the eternal fire. The flames licked the things in the fire, and the Black Widow left without hesitation. This place is the most dangerous place right now, and that's when she shows up with Levi's. Levi knew the plan had succeeded. Just as Hela was about to give Thor a 10-lesson, she heard a loud noise behind her, accompanied by a scorching heat. After the giant appeared, Levi's knew that it was all coming to an end. We retreat quickly now. Tony and Black Widow nodded when they heard this, and Levi Spetter stood still and shouted, Thor, we have to leave right now, we can't wait. After the flame demon appeared, it began to wreak havoc on Asgard, and the source of Hela's power was Asgard. Hela's full eyes on his source of power was destroyed. Now he couldn't care about Thor and them, and turned his head to fight the flame demon. Thor watched Asgard, where he had lived for so long, crumble inch by inch, and the building collapsed. There is still infinite sadness and discomfort in his heart, which carries countless memories of him. But he knew there was something more important now, and followed Levi to them on the ship. After seeing everyone coming up, Sokka opened the spaceship and flew towards the Earth. Tony saw Thor's sadness. Man, it's not that there is still a foundation, It's a big deal that we can take some time and rebuild it later, and it will definitely be like you were before." And just after Tony said this, the aftermath of Hela's battle with the flame demon destroyed all of Asgard's remaining ruins floating in the universe as rubble. Tony also saw it, and opened his mouth for a moment to find a better way to describe it. After wanting to stop talking, he just reached out and patted Thor on the shoulder. "Man, it's okay, we can find a better place to live later." Thor didn't answer his words, only looked at the rubble floating in the air. Levi's looked at this shocking scene in front of him, and sure enough, when the beautiful business was destroyed, he would exude a different kind of beauty. Levi's couldn't describe it, but he also felt the sadness. Black Widow walked over to Levi's side. "Vice, what are you thinking?" Hearing Natasha Romanoff's voice, Levi's gaze shifted from Asgard, who had been shattered in front of him, to Black Widow's body. "I didn't think about anything, it's just that Thor should feel bad now." Levi turned the conversation to Thor, who came back to his senses when he heard his name. "I'm okay now." "Then do you think about how to settle the people behind you? Now that Asgard is destroyed, it's a very troublesome thing to go now." Those who survived Asgard looked to Thor, who is now their current leader. Thor also looked back at the remaining people, and the remaining people had confusion in their eyes, as well as trust in Thor. They believed in Thor and that he could arrange a very good place for them. "Go to Earth, we settle there after that, Asgard can't go back to before." Levi's was not surprised to hear Thor's decision, and there was no more suitable option now. "However, it is a little more troublesome to deal with the check-in procedures, but with the help of Shield, this matter is not a difficult matter." The spacecraft weaved through the galaxy, and finally reached their familiar place after a long silence. There were many people who came down from the spacecraft, and their appearance attracted the curious eyes of many people around. There is no malice in these eyes, just pure curiosity. And Yuriko, who was standing in the crowd, saw Levi's and happily walked to Levi's side. "Vice big brother, where did you come from? I haven't seen you in a long time." "I went out to deal with a little something, and it wasn't that long, right?" "You little guy is still lying." Yuriko spat out her tongue when she heard this. "I don't have it. Doesn't Huago have a saying that one day is not like 3 autumns?" Yuriko is in such a mood. Levi's touched Yuriko's head and felt that she was a small ghost. Thor counted the rest of the people and walked over to Levi's side. "Vice, can you please do me a favor?" Levi nodded. "If there is anything you need me to help with, you say, I will help you." 17. "Now that neither I nor them have a place to go, can you please take us in for 300 years? I will leave when I find a place to go." Levi's looked at the crowd standing not far away. "I have to ask Mr. Coaster about this matter to see if I can arrange it for you." Thor heard this until Levi said yes and hammered Levi's on the shoulder. "Then this matter will trouble you. We're all friends, and definitely will help you with something." Levi said this. Thor was a little touched after hearing this. If it weren't for these friends of his, he might have some difficulties. "Thank you so much. I don't even know how to thank you." Levi smiled and didn't speak, and Tony, who came up from behind, heard it. "It's simple. Treat us to dinner when you settle down." Thor nodded. He would definitely do this. "I will definitely not forget you. You will just wait for me when the time comes." Levi contacted Cyclops, who arranged for all the civilians of Asgard to be arranged and given them a record of ranks. When everyone in the playground had dealt with it, there were only a few of them left. "Vice, I'm discussing with Banner for a drink. Are you going?" Levi's nodded and agreed. "Okay, I'm just fine now." Chapter 288. The Hint of Black Widow. Black Widow saw that the 3 of them were sure and took the initiative to sign up. "I want to go too. Add me." The others definitely had no opinion and readily agreed and went to the bar they frequented most often. At this time, there was no one in the bar, and there was a female singer on the stage, holding a guitar and singing a minor tune that I don't know where. It was very ambient, and everyone found a place to sit down, and Black Widow sat next to Levi's. After ordering something, several people began to make small talk, and it was Hela who was discussing. Although the battle was over, Hela left too much of an impression on them. Levi's didn't get involved in the topic, just listened quietly to their discussion. Levi was drinking when he felt a hand on his thigh. When the light was dim, Levi's raised his eyebrows and looked at the owner of the hand, Natasha Romanoff, who was sitting next to Levi's. Seeing that Levi's was looking at him, he blinked his own eyes, pretending to be innocent and looking into Levi's eyes. "What's wrong? How do you look at me with that look?" Black Widow's voice attracted several other people, who couldn't see what was going on under the table. "What are you two secretly talking about?" "Whisper behind our backs, huh?" Levi's heard the mask and spread his hands. "What can we say?" "Normal chat. Why are you so curious?" Tony gave a mocking smile. "Who knows? Maybe there's something you can't tell us." "Drinking can't stop your mouth. Hurry up and eat some fruit." Levi knew that Tony was just joking, and also answered Tony's words jokingly. Levi said their attention was not there. Levi and Black Widow's body. Natasha Romanoff's hand became even more presumptuous after their attention was removed. Levi's quietly held her hand to keep her from moving. The held Black Widow did not move, was much more honest, and began to drink the wine in his hand. They drank late, almost to the end, and Banner and Tony left together. The rest of the people also went on their own. and in the end they were left with Levi's and Black Widow. Levi's looked at her when he saw them go, and looked at it with some meaning. "What are you going to do? So bold?" Natasha Romanoff showed a charming smile. "Do you really not know, or are you playing the fool? I thought you understood." Levi's knew what she meant before and laughed. "Shall we talk as we go?" Black Widow had no opinion, skillfully hooked Levi's arm, and walked out the door hand in arm with Levi's. "Vice, you have no heart. I haven't seen you come to me for so long." Levi's heard what Natasha Romanoff was saying, complaining about not seeing her properly for too long. "You also see that this time is a little busy. I really don't have time." "It's not that I don't come." Levi's is also busy enough during this time. There are still a lot of big file size and small things, and sometimes he really can't be blamed for this matter. "Is that so? I hope you are telling the truth." Natasha Romanoff was a little disbelieving Levi's statement, dubious. Levi put his arm around Natasha Romanoff's shoulders. "Didn't you pretend not to know me in the first place? Okay, let's go." After saying that, he took Natasha Romanoff with his arms around him and went to his other residence, where the college house was now definitely. Levi's movements were known to Cuckoo in advance, and the bathroom and the lights in the house were ready. Now the temperature in the room is just right, and the relaxing lights in the room. "You go wash up first, and I'll wash it too, because of the smell of wine on my body." Natasha Romanoff looked at Levi and nodded. "Okay, I see, you hurry up." Levi nodded. "Okay, you go quickly." Natasha Romanoff stepped back into the bathroom, and Levi's turned to go up to the bathroom on the second floor. "I took a comfortable hot bath, and half an hour later I saw a figure walking in front of the toilet." Levi's knew who it was and there was no reaction. By the time he came out, Natasha Romanoff was already waiting for him. "Hello?" "Yes." As soon as Levi's finished speaking, Natasha Romanoff hugged him. 01191110181423221. The next morning, Levi's biological clock woke him up on time, and Natasha Romanoff hadn't woken up yet, sleeping soundly next to Levi's. Levi didn't wake Natasha Romanoff and went to the gym when he got up. While sweating profusely, he heard the voice behind him. "Vice, hurry up for breakfast." Levi's looked back to see Natasha Romanoff, who was leaning against the door with his arms crossed, looking at him with a smile. "Hey, I see, come now." As he spoke, he wiped the sweat from his face and walked over to Natasha Romanoff. "What delicious food did you prepare for me today?" "Just go to the restaurant." Natasha Romanoff didn't say anything, just smiled and motioned for Levi to go to the restaurant. "Okay, I know. I'll go check it out now." Natasha Romanoff followed Levi's, her eyes boldly roving back and forth over his back. At this time, Black Widow looked like a rogue and exclaimed, "Not bad." "Don't you know if I'm in good shape?" Levi's heard her words, and it didn't matter that Black Widow came to the restaurant frankly. "A very classic Western breakfast is prepared, toast omelette with milk, and a dessert that I don't know what." Levi stuttered with his fork. "Well, it's very good. It's delicious." Natasha Romanoff didn't prepare herself and sat on the sidelines watching Levi eat. "Don't you eat it yourself?" "I'll make an appointment with someone later. I won't eat with you. I'll go out later." Regarding the private lives of others, Levi's didn't probe too much, nodding his head to show that he knew. "Okay, then I wish you a good time." "Thanks, I'll go find the clothes tile." With that, Natasha Romanoff left the kitchen, and Levi finished eating and sent the dishes to the dishwasher. Go upstairs to see Natasha Romanoff, who is trying on clothes when he sees Levi coming up and glaring up. "Hurry up and help me see, which one is more suitable for me." "The left-handed one looks more suitable for you." The one on the left hand of Black Widow is a long black dress, but the waist is very well cinched, and Black Widow wears a very temperamental. "This one? I'll give it a try." Natasha Romanoff replaced the one Levi's said and spun around in front of Levi's. "How? Is it appropriate?" Levi's touched his chin and looked around, then nodded. "I think it's very suitable." Chapter 289 Polaris phone. The two of them looked tired and crooked in the room for a while before they came out of the room. Black Widow had taken care of himself. Levi had no plans to go out today, and he was still wearing what he wore in the morning. "I'm leaving, bye-bye." Black Widow gave Levi a farewell kiss as he said goodbye. "Let's go, bye-bye, have fun." After seeing the person leave, Levi's closed the door and went back to his room to lie down in his clothes. "Sakami, help me contact Lorna Dane." When Saka heard this, he carried out Levi's request and called Dane for the video. The video was connected after a while, and Polaris' face appeared on the screen, as if he was working on something. "Vice, how did you think of calling me today?" Polaris was a little surprised to receive a call from Levi's, and thought that Levi's was busy during this time and did not have time to contact him. "I haven't seen you for too long. I wanted to see you so I called you." Polaris' attention fell on Levi in the video not far away. "You're really weird today." "Strange? How come I don't think I'm weird? Where are you now?" "A person is being tracked down, and is now on road 390. Polaris rode on his own locomotive, the wind blowing his dark green hair, accompanied by the roar of huge amounts of the mechanic. "You're busy right now, right? Then I'll contact you later." Levi saw that she was dealing with things, knew that it was not a good time, and planned to hang up. "Okay, I'll contact you after I'm dealt with here. Goodbye." Polaris, who is also a neat person, hung up the phone at once. Levi's looked at the disappearing screen for a moment, then went to the room to put on his own clothes and planned to go out, ready to go to the academy to see the situation. When entered, Levi's went to Cyclops to find them. Cyclops was in a meeting, and Levi's didn't interrupt them and found a place to sit himself. When Cyclops finished the meeting and everyone was gone, Cyclops walked to Levi's side. "How did you get here today? Usually you rarely set foot here." When Cyclops knew why, it wasn't Levi's who was afraid he would assign him a job. "Definitely, I have some questions for you." Cyclops instinctively felt that there was nothing good about Levi getting here. "Whatever you say." "Just ask how Thor brought people yesterday." "Arranged?" "All arranged. If you can't arrange it, you can give it to Shield." Cyclops laughed after hearing this. "You don't know anything about this piece, and with our current ability, it is more than enough to contain them." Levi's really doesn't know much about this piece, so he came to ask today. "Is this the case?" "If you can accommodate it, it's fine." "Why did you suddenly care so much about this matter?" Levi's took a sip of the water in front of him and moistened his throat. "I was very relieved to have Mr. Coaster deal with me, definitely, but I suddenly remembered, so I asked about the situation here." This matter is also Levi's whim to ask. Before this, storage was handled by Cyclops and them. "Well, I see." "Yes, there is another thing, that is, about the pharmacy. We have now applied for approval, and now it should be able to be produced in large quantities." Very Cyclops laughed. "Ha. At this time remembered something about the potion. You can just handle this matter, don't go too far, and the management of the market should be stricter." Levi's knew about the potion, and he had not applied for it before, but now he applied for it, which made Levi a little strange. "Why did you apply for it now? Wasn't the card very strict before?" "I don't know about this matter, and their superiors don't understand anything, but we are not afraid that he will be okay now." Cyclops didn't take this matter seriously, and, Badi, Levi's thought about it for a moment and felt that it made sense, so he didn't take it to heart. Levi's talked to Cyclops about some recent updates, and someone called him. Levi and Cyclops pointed to their phones, and Cyclops understood. "I see. There you go." Levi's found a place where there was no one and answered the phone. It was Polaris. She saw the building behind Levi's somewhat familiar. "Are you in the academy now?" Levi didn't hide it and nodded. "Yes, I'm in the academy right now. Do you want to come over? Or did I go looking for you?" Polaris thought for a moment. "I'll come down and pick you up, just so I can take you to a place." "Okay, then I'll wait for you here." Levi's agreed, said goodbye to the North Pole and hung up. Levi saw Cyclops smile when he entered the door, and looked at himself a little strangely. "I don't have anything on me, right? How do you look at me with this expression? Who did you just call? Hurry up and talk to me." Levi's didn't want to talk about himself to Cyclops and avoided the topic. "No one, Mr. Coaster, you are too curious. Didn't I care about you?" "Look at what you say." Cyclops didn't break the casserole on this matter either, and turned to other things. "Teacher, it's almost time. I'm going to go first." Levi's looked at the watch in his hand and felt that the time was almost up, and it should be time for Polaris to agree. "Well, you go about your own thing. Bye." Levi said goodbye as he walked to the door, and his figure disappeared in the doorway in a blink of an eye. Levi walked out the door just in time to receive a call from Polaris. "Where are you?" "I'm waiting for you at the entrance of the campus." "I'll be there soon, you wait." When Levi's arrived at the school gate, he saw Polaris waiting for him, leaning on the motorcycle behind him. Seeing Levi come out and stand up straight, he handed the helmet in his hand to Levi's. "Get in the car, I'll take you somewhere." Levi's didn't ask where it was, and brought his hat to his head. Polaris was already riding a motorcycle waiting for Levi's. His long legs straddled Polaris' motorcycle, and then naturally hugged Polaris' waist. "When I used to study a bicycle, I liked this feeling." Polaris was acquiesced by Levi's action, and rushed out without saying anything by twisting the throttle. The wind whistled past his ears, and Levi's tall body in the back seat was completely able to envelop Polaris. As they passed by, many people whistled at them, and they didn't dare to glare at them when Polaris glared at them. Chapter 290. Invite Polaris to visit the house. Neither of them spoke, and after a while they finally arrived at Polaris, where they wanted to take her. "So that's where you want to bring me?" Levi stood in the doorway looking at Polaris in front of him, behind an abandoned warehouse. "By the way, this is the place I want to bring you, Tilda. Let's go first." Polaris pushed open the somewhat broken door. The door in disrepair creaked, and the two walked into the warehouse one after the other. Opening the barn, there was nothing on Curry's face. There was a thick layer of dust on the ground, and the two walked by and left footprints. "I thought I looked around inside, found nothing, and looked at Polaris. There's nothing here." "What are you bringing me here for?" "Wait a minute, wait until it gets dark, and you'll know." Now that it was still some distance before dark, the two of them found a place to sit everywhere. After sitting down, the two began to talk about their recent current situation and some things. "Vice, seeing how busy you seem to have been lately, I haven't seen you contact me for a long time." Levi nodded. "There have been some things recently, and it is indeed the reason why I am busy. But won't we have a longer time in the future? Levi's words coaxed Polaris to be a little happy, so he didn't ask about it again. While the two were talking, time passed quickly, and it was dark in a blink of an eye. A little light outside the purple can barely see the silhouette of the two. Seeing that the time was almost up, Levi's looked at Polaris. It's already dark. I'm looking forward to what you have in store for me. In the darkness, Polaris gave birth to his left hand and began to activate his ability. Seeing this, Levi seemed to understand, and also stretched out his hand, tentatively overlapping on Polaris's hand. Then I also activated the ability I signed in from the eclipse, similar to the sun's sunspot, waiting for my ability, which can store and convert solar energy. When the hands of the two overlapped, an aurora phenomenon began to appear from the palm of the hand. When such stunning colors appeared, Polaris smiled with satisfaction. That's my surprise for you. Like it? Thought it was the constantly fluctuating aurora of doing things. I love this gift. Thank you. Hearing this, Polaris rested his head on Levi's shoulder, and the two quietly looked at the aurora around them for a while. The rare scenery can be seen casually from them, and if anyone else is here, they can see such a shocking and beautiful scene. Wrapped in colorful and brilliant aurora, the two sat quietly. After watching for a while, Polaris withdrew his ability, but the folded hands of the two did not let go, and they still held each other intimately. Well, it's almost time. We should go back too. Polaris stood up first, then went to drag Levi's, who was still sitting on the ground. Don't sit down a little longer? Take a look at this aurora. Didn't you say we had a long time? There will be time to see in the future, so don't rush at this time. Polaris quickly found a reason, thinking that he had heard this, and also stood up from the ground. Well, since you said so, then let's go back. Walking out of the warehouse, Polaris' locomotive was still parked in front of the door, not moving. Levi's took a step ahead and got on top of the locomotive. Let me drive you now, beautiful lady. Speaking, Levi also gave birth to his own hand, a very gentlemanly invitation to the back seat of the Polaris seat. Polaris also accompanied Levi to act, pretending to be very surprised and covering his mouth. Oh, I'm so lucky to have such a handsome male companion. After saying that, he put on his helmet and sat in the back seat of Levi's, and put his hand around his waist. After making sure that the Polaris was done, Levi's twisted the throttle. The locomotive with good performance sped out very quickly, bringing up dust all the way behind. Levi's took Polaris to his room, pushed open the door and walked in. Polaris stood in the doorway without moving, looking at Levi's back. What's wrong with you? Why don't you come in? After walking for a while, Levi's noticed that Polaris was not following and stopped to look at her. Polaris looked at the place. I don't seem to be here before. Well, yes, this is my newest house to buy. What's the problem? Zero begging for flowers. I thought it was very frank and admitted this matter, without the slightest concealment. After watching for a while, Polaris also withdrew his gaze and walked into Levi's door. No, there is no problem. I am just a little curious. Why did you suddenly think of buying a house? When Levi's entered, he opened the refrigerator door and turned to ask Polaris if he wanted water or a drink. Plain water is fine, thank you. After hearing the answer, Levi's took a bottle of mineral water from the refrigerator and threw it to Polaris. Polaris is 100% connected. That's when Levi replied to Polaris. It's not sudden. I've planned it for a long time. It's only recently started. Do you want to visit? .00. Polaris heard Levi's invitation and nodded. Well, I want to see what your taste is like. Levi's placed his drink on the table and took Polaris around the room. I personally prefer a simple style, so most of my decoration is also relatively simple. I don't know if you will like it, Levi said as he walked him around the house. The second floor was the room where Levi's lived, and some guest rooms. The decoration is also simple and clear, and it looks very spacious. Looking down from the second floor, you can also see a back garden with a swimming pool. The pool has crystal clear water and a beach chair and parasol on the side. Levi saw that Polaris was fascinated. Do you like it here? Polaris, who was looking at him, heard his words and nodded. Well, it's not bad. The decoration here is more in line with my preferences. Oh yes? Then it seems that the two of us are very lucky. After Levi said this, Polaris looked at him with a little smile on his lips. We are indeed very lucky to look at it this way, but if we don't have it, we won't meet it. No, we must have a fate. We will definitely meet, Levi said very firmly, and Polaris was a little curious. How can you be so sure? How are you sure that we will have a fate? Chapter 291 Cuckoo Sisters. Levi definitely wouldn't say why, but smiled. I think we're just lucky. Polaris was quite satisfied when he heard this answer, and more smiles appeared on his face. That is Providence. Providence will let us meet. Levi nodded, and now the atmosphere between the two was very ambiguous. Polaris took 2 steps forward, both almost attached to Levi's arms. I thought I was looking down at Polaris, but I didn't speak, but I just looked at him quietly. Polaris grabbed Levi's by the collar and tugged down. What are you waiting for? Levi spread his hands. I'm not waiting for anything. I'm just waiting for you. Is it? Then we will. Polaris' next words didn't come out, but the meaning was already obvious, and Levi's understood Jiolu at once. It's so obvious that Levi's definitely doesn't pretend not to see it. In the morning, before Levi woke up, he was woken up by Sakago. Master, someone is contacting you now. Do you want to receive the video now? I thought I had found clothes to put on, and went to the living room to pour myself a glass of water. Now connected. As soon as his voice fell, the video was connected, and Thor appeared on the opposite side. Hey man, where are you now? Thinking that he did not expect Thor to contact him, he took a sip of water and asked him what was going on. It's about the resettlement of civilians in Asgard, and I want to talk to you about it. Oh? What do you have to talk to me about now? Have you found the right place to go? I haven't found a suitable place yet, so I want to talk to you about it. Levi's looked at Thor like that, definitely encountered a problem, thought for a while, and agreed to his invitation. Okay, I know about this, I'll come over later. After getting the desired reply, Thor said the address and hung up. Levi's went to the room to find the right clothes to put on, and saw that Polaris had not yet woken up and left a note on the table. When he was ready, Levi set off for the place Thor had said. The two met in a cafe with good secrecy, in which Thor sat. Levi waved as he saw him come in through the doorway. Hey, Vice here. I thought I was walking up to Thor and sitting down, and the deceased came up to inquire. A glass of plain water, thank you. After deciding what to drink, Levi looked at Thor. You come to me to discuss something, now talk about it. I also have a hard time saying about this matter, and I have also discussed with Shield about how my people will deal with it. Tolga told Levi's all about the situation he encountered now, and after speaking, he looked at Levi's, hoping that he could give himself some advice. I know the place you mentioned, it's just a little remote. The location that Levi's had heard Thor say was a bit remote, but it was also quite suitable for the Asgard. I don't think there's any problem. What is the problem you have now? It's about construction. There are no houses there that we need to rebuild ourselves, but they don't give much funding. Thor voiced his troubles and hoped that Levi would give him a little opinion. In terms of funding, Levi's touched his chin and thought, and Thor looked at him expectantly. For this money, well, I can discuss with the Academy and lend it to you first. Levi's is also not charitable, and these days definitely will not say to give, and it is not a small amount. But Thor was slightly dissatisfied with the result. Want to say something to Levi's? Levi's saw what Thor wanted to say and interrupted him. Thor, you know, the Academy is not mine. This amount of money is not a small amount. I can't decide to give you a lot. Thor heard this and took back what he wanted to say. After all, Levi's had helped him before. Oh, sorry, I was greedy, I'm sorry. Thor is also a person who immediately admitted that he had something and immediately apologized to Levi's. It's okay, I know what you think in your heart. Let this matter be like this. I'll go back and discuss it with Mr. Coaster. After saying this, the two chatted about other things for a while, and then Levi returned to the Academy. As soon as he arrived at the Academy, he received a phone call from Polaris. Why can't I see you in the morning? Where did you go? When Polaris got up, he didn't see Levi's, looked around the room, and made sure that the person had left, so he called Levi's. Oh, sorry, I didn't wait until you woke up, I had some things to deal with on my side, so I left first. Polaris also recognized that Levi's was now inside the Academy and knew that he might have really had something to do before leaving. But as it happened, Polaris was still a little unhappy, and Levi's could see her unhappiness. Sorry, I will definitely accompany you next time I have a chance, or let's go have a good time tonight. Where do you want to go? Levi's thoughtfully commented, and Polaris wasn't so angry. Then we'll make up our minds. I'll go find you at night. Okay, I'll wait for you here at night. Levi's agreed, and the speaker had arrived at the door of Cyclops' office. I still have something here, hang up first, bye-bye, see you in the evening. Polaris is not a stalker either, and when he heard this, he hung up the phone and asked him to go about his own business. Reaching the door of Cyclops' office, Levi stopped and didn't go any further. After standing in the doorway and thinking for a while, Levi turned and went somewhere else. He came to Mexico and appeared in Reva's office. For the appearance of Levi's, the Cuckoo sisters were very surprised. Master, my God, I'm not dazzled, am I? Levi's hadn't appeared for a long time, and now the sudden appearance really surprised them. Yes, how are you doing? We're all right. Has the director been busy lately? We haven't seen you for a long time. The Cuckoo sisters are still a little resentful about this. They haven't seen Levi's for a long time. Wait, let's get down to business first. I have something here. Levi's first asked about the recent situation of the company and talked about the company's affairs. Chapter 292 The Knight's Promise with Polaris. Master, now the company's affairs are going smoothly, and there are no great difficulties. The Cuckoo sisters reported everything to Levi about the recent company, and all the recent developments and financial reports to Levi's. Levi's lay back in his chair and pondered after listening to all the reports. How much activity funds does our company have now? Master, are there any other plans? I thought it was Thor's business, told them about it, and then saw what other opinions they had. I think there is still some loss in this matter. If we charge interest, we can still consider it. The Cuckoo sisters summed up their minds and told Levi's what they thought. This matter, I will let Thor contact you when the time comes, and you will discuss it with each other. Don't look at what preferential treatment will be given for my sake. Just follow the normal procedure. Levi's thinks he is not a good person, and it is still up to the Cuckoo to deal with it, and it is not a thankless task. Several people discussed some details and the matter came to an end. 10. That's when they have time to talk about themselves. Master, did you hear what we said earlier? Sue flied at Levi's. She hadn't seen Levi's for a long time. Now Levi's shows up and says she wants Levi to stay. I've been busy a bit lately, and I've only been free for this time. Levi's touched Suf's head and explained. Then why did the master talk about work? Do you miss us at all? Suf is completely the gesture of the younger daughter, wanting to get attention from Levi's. No, don't worry. Suf's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he pestered Levi's even more. Then can the master stay today? We miss you so much. Levi's was a little moved to hear this, but he had made an appointment with Polaris in the evening, and he was afraid that he could not stay here now. There are still things that I need to deal with at the academy. I will go back later. Will I come to see you later? Levi's didn't agree. After all, he promised Polaris first, and it was hard to regret it. Suf was also a sensible person and did not say anything more to let Levi stay. Okay, then you have to talk and count. You must come when the time comes. Yes, I'll come see you when I'm not so busy. Levi's agreed. This matter is not difficult. Levi definitely will agree. Things were almost over, and Levi saw that it was not very early and planned to go back. Goodbye, I still have something to go back to. Goodbye master, you must remember to come and see us when the time comes. Levi nodded, turned and disappeared out the door. The Cuckoo sisters stood behind him and watched his departing back, their faces full of reluctance. Levi went back into the academy and sat down in Cyclops' office. Hey, why did you have time to come to me today? It's really unusual. How? Teacher Coaster doesn't welcome me? Levi's teased Cyclops with a little smile, flipping through a document from Cyclops' desk. Seeing this document, Levi's turned 2 more pages. Our academy is going to buy vibranium with Wakanda? Does King Wakanda agree? Levi's didn't even know they had this cooperation, and began to look at what was written on the document in earnest. You said this matter, it is still under discussion, and it is not clear what it will be like at that time. This document has not yet been implemented, it is just a proposal. Levi's flipped through it for a while and saw that it was indeed just a plan, and it had not yet been perfected. Is that so? I know, you plan to contact the people like this plan? Levi thinks that the people of Wakanda may not need any money, after all, they can be rich for a long time by selling a little. This is just a rudiment, definitely will not follow this plan, let this matter be handled by them. Cyclops took the document from Levi's hand and glanced at it, then put it back on the table. Someone will deal with it, and you will definitely be asked about the plan when the time comes. Levi nodded. Okay, I see. After saying this, Levi's raised his arm and glanced at his watch, and the time was almost up, and Levi's estimated that Polaris was about to appear. Cyclops saw his action. Look at you like this, there must be an appointment today. I won't leave you to go quickly. Don't let the beauty wait. How do you know it's a beauty? I didn't say that. Did I? Levi stood up and sorted out his clothes, then walked to the door and opened the door to go out. I don't know what you kid is like. Hurry up and go. Cyclops doesn't find it strange that heroes match beauty, and there is always no shortage of excellent women around people with ability. Then goodbye, teacher, and I'll bring you a gift later. When Levi's walked to the door, Polaris hadn't arrived yet, and he stood on the side of the road and took out his phone to write back to the others. None of them are very important things, some of them have already been solved. While checking these messages, a roar of locomotives came from far to near, and finally stopped in front of Levi's. Levi's heard whistles and familiar voices before he could look up. Handsome. 10 people. 750. When he looked up, he saw Polaris, who had removed his helmet, looking at him, waiting for his answer. Levi's was a little funny about Polaris' action, but he didn't expect Polaris to be so fun-loving. Pretending to cooperate, he put his phone into his pocket and answered Polaris seriously. No, I'm waiting for a beautiful woman, it's just that she hasn't come at this time. Oh? Is it? How do I think the person you're waiting for has arrived? Polaris handed Levi's the helmet in the back seat and raised an eyebrow at him. Hurry up and get in the car, we'll go now. Levi's put on his helmet. Since it was your invitation, I'm really honored. As soon as he got on the locomotive, Polaris immediately twisted the accelerator and rushed out. Apparently Polaris had planned ahead and took Levi to other places today. The place where the two of them go today is a coast, and few people come to this coast. The humid sea breeze and the waves lapping the harness. Levi's is not surprised to see this. Polaris wants to experience the feeling of dating in love. He doesn't have any opinions, and it's not bad for Levi's. Do you like it here? Seeing you like this, you seem to enjoy being here. Levi saw Polaris walking slowly, relaxed. Chapter 293. I met Shan by chance, but I haven't recovered my memory yet. Yes, I quite like it here, and when I encounter something more troublesome before, I will come here to sit down. Polaris walked and found a reef to sit down, his short green hair blowing in the wind. At this time, Polaris unloaded the high cold he saw on weekdays, and was very relaxed. Just like an ordinary girl in love, turn your head sideways to look at Levi's. What about you? Do you like it here? Polaris' question wasn't like asking here, but rather asking him if he liked himself. Definitely, it's beautiful here, and I love it too. After Levi said this, Polaris didn't speak again, and Levi's didn't find a topic to talk to her. They were all silent, but the atmosphere between the two was not rigid, just as if they were enjoying this beautiful scenery together. Only she knew what Polaris was thinking, and she knew that Levi's couldn't be the only one by her side. It was impossible, but love was selfish, and she wanted Levi to be the only one by her side. During the time that Levi's didn't come to her, she thought a lot about it herself. In the end all this is relieved. There is nothing worth considering. Vice, do you think you're happy now? After being silent for a while, Polaris suddenly spoke and asked a headless question. I'm very happy now. I think everything is fine. What's so unhappy about Levi's? Now things are going in a good direction, and things are basically taken care of. On days like this, Levi's was very happy. Happy? It's good to be happy, Polaris said and rested his head on Levi's shoulder, then turned his head sideways and lightly nodded Levi's face. Let's go back now. I feel a little cold. Levi's didn't think the difference in temperature, but took Polaris back to his home. When he arrived at Levi's house, Polaris was very self-cooked, and found a bottle of red wine and 2 goblets from his wine cabinet. Do you want to drink some, Tilda? Levi nodded. No problem. Polaris sat down next to Levi with a wine glass and poured Levi a glass of red wine. By this time, Polaris was already washed and wearing Levi's shirt. The shirt was noticeably much larger, loosely wrapped around his body, and his 2 long, smooth legs were exposed. After taking a bath, there was still the smell of shower gel and moisture, and there was temptation written next to Levi's. At the moment the living room is playing a love movie, and the lights are dim. The two drank glass after glass, and they were a little drunk for a while, but they were still conscious. Levi's got up refreshed the next day and went downstairs to find a bottle of water in the fridge. After moisturizing his throat, Levi got better, sat in the living room and turned on the TV. The content on TV is still the same, there is no other news. Levi's changed a few stations, still a little bored, so he casually found a station to watch. I got up to wash and get dressed. While he was shaving, a hand reached out from behind his back and hugged Levi's. Why did you wake up so early? Don't call me. Levi's shaved the last bit of stubble off his face and put down the razor in his hand. You were also tired last night, so it's good to rest more. Polaris heard what Levi's meant and laughed. I have something to do in a while. I have to leave for 2 days, and you won't see you during this time. Polaris told Levis everything he needed to do recently, and he nodded to show that he knew about it. Be careful yourself, don't be too reckless, just contact me if something happens. Levi's brushed her folded hair and told Polaris, don't worry, I've been dealing with it alone for so long, and this little thing doesn't matter to me. Okay, but you still need to be careful. Levi knows that Polaris is quite strong, and ordinary people can't help her. You wash up first, I'll go prepare breakfast, and you can eat it when you come out. With that, Levi's left the bathroom and walked to the kitchen. Polaris left in a hurry after eating at Levi's, and it seemed that things were really in a bit of a hurry. Levi finished his breakfast slowly, and then went out not far away. Levi felt a little bored, thought for a while and disappeared in place. When he reappeared near King Kong, Levi's was now like a retired old man wandering around. When he appeared on the island, King Kong immediately sensed Levi's breath. Looking up in the direction of Levi's, Levi was standing on a very high reef. King Kong, I came to see you, are you okay lately? King Kong stood feeling a little tired, sat on the ground and looked at Levi's, and let out a low growl when he heard his words. Levi's also understood the meaning of this and also sat on the reef. It seems that you have been doing well recently, and you haven't encountered anything difficult, right? Where else will there be any difficulties? Now the threatening things on Skull Island have been cleaned up by King Kong. Now King Kong is a little bored, but there is nowhere else to go except this island. Although the two have different languages, they can still communicate without barriers. Chatting and chatting, King Kong suddenly looked at a place. Levi's saw King Kong like this. Something strange must have broken in. Levi's told Kong not to move and spoke for himself. What man? Don't hide. Come out quickly. After Levi's said this, there was a crack in the grass, and someone walked from inside to the clearing. Levi's was very surprised when he saw the person. Shan, why are you here? Shan also heard a very familiar voice and looked up at the person standing tall. Against the sunshine, she saw the person standing on, well, with a very surprised expression. Vice, I've been looking for you for a long time, and there has been no news since you left last time. Shan hadn't seen Levi since the last parting. When she woke up, she saw a strange woman. She didn't stay long, and left after waking up. But she always remembered Levi's and wanted to find Levi's. It was also a coincidence that she was here today, and she didn't hope to see Levi's here. Levi's was too busy behind to forget about Shan, and now he remembered when he saw Levi's. Have you been looking for me for a long time? Levi's was now at Shan's side, and Shan, hugging him and nodding. I searched for a long time. I also saw your news on TV, but I went and didn't find you. Levi's was a little weak when he heard this. He seemed to be a scumbag at this time, but he had asked the Cuckoo sisters to take good care of him before. Chapter 294 The Big Transformation of Shan. Miss Rich, then why are you here today? How did you get here? Levi's remembered that the place was quite remote, and Shan had no memory of how she found it here. I don't know, I just think this place is very familiar, but I am very scared to come here. Shan didn't know what it felt, but that's how she felt when she came to this place. Levi definitely knew what was going on, but it was very strange that she could find it here. She has obviously erased her memory. How can she return here? It sounds a little mysterious, but Levi's didn't figure it out. It's okay, we don't want to go if we don't want to. Let's introduce, this is my partner King Kong. Levi took Shan to stand in front of King Kong, and King Kong looked at Shan beside Levi's, tentatively stretched out to look at his huge amounts of palm. If it remembers correctly, this is the meaning of friendly communication. Shan was still a little scared when she saw King Kong subconsciously. After all, King Kong looked too big, and a finger was thicker than her. But Levi's still settled down in her heart here, since it was Levi's partner Shan who suppressed the fear in 463's heart and tentatively held one of King Kong's fingers. Hello, I'm Shan. Shan was his wife. Levi's was a little heady when he heard the word. He hadn't thought that it had been so long, and Shan hadn't recovered his memory. But it didn't seem very good to refute in person, and Levi's chose to be silent. King Kong didn't move his wife's meaning. Anyway, whatever she said, Ying, he roared. Shin was even happier when she got the response, and turned to look at Levi behind her. Vice, is it responding to me? It's amazing, it can understand us? Levi saw Shan's surprised look and replied, yes, King Kong is very smart, and he can understand what you say. Shan was very curious about King Kong, and looked Levi up and down to ask Levi, as if he was curious about the baby. Levi's had no other emotions, patiently and carefully explained. The two spent a long time on the island, and Levi's got bored and wanted to leave. Let's go, we should go back now. Shan was still a little reluctant, and looked at Bbook, Vice in confusion and said, where are we going now? I don't seem to have nowhere to go. She couldn't remember where she came from, so she assumed that she had nowhere to go. Come with me, I'll take you. Shan was covered in dust and looked like she hadn't taken care of it for a long time. When Levi saw this, he didn't know how to start a good little girl mixed up like this. Hearing his words, Shan didn't hesitation at all and kept up with Levi's. You wait for me, you're going too fast. Goodbye King Kong, we'll play with you next time. Sam didn't forget to say goodbye to King Kong as she left, and Kong sat where he was and Levi waved them. Watch them disappear in front of you, looking at the island that has not changed much as in your previous life. Levi's took Shan into a high-end image design store, pushed Shan out, and found a sofa to sit on himself. You geese take good care of her, how to look good and how to come. Levi's knows everyone here, and the service attitude is very good, and he brought Shan in. Mr. Lee, rest assured, we will definitely give you a satisfactory answer. Levi's nodded, did not speak, and flipped through the magazines beside him. The magazine is full of some of the season's news styles, as well as some entertainment reports. Levi's felt a little bored after turning it over for a while, but fortunately it didn't make him wait long. Shan, who had already taken care of her, was brought out, and they dressed Shan in a cheongsam to reveal her figure. A very expensive shawl was draped outside, and it was burned with a long black straight. With the two of them brought in by Levi's just now, the current Shan is very noble if she doesn't speak, and her every move looks like a file-sized sister with a very good birth. Levi's was much more satisfied to see such a Shan, and the designers around him were constantly praising him. This young lady is too suitable for this cheongsam, and she is often good-looking. Levi nodded. It was indeed very suitable, very oriental. This body made Shan's appearance directly rise several notches, and it was more in line with Levi's aesthetic. When Shan came out, she took Levi's arm. She was a little uncomfortable, and the people around her looked at her. Only standing with Levi's did she feel a little calmer, and she was a little wary of unfamiliar environments. Levi's was quite satisfied to see Shan sticking to himself like this. After all, it felt very good to be treated as the only one. Thank you, the bill is on my account, let's go first. Levi's sensed Shan's uneasiness, and at this time he was also going to be hungry and planning to find a place to eat. Shan, are you hungry? What do you want to eat now? Shan didn't feel anything yet, but when she heard Levi's ask, she felt a little, touching his stomach. Yes, I'm hungry, I eat what you eat, I'm not a picky eater. Shan had no opinion and let Levi decide. Hearing this, Levi's took her to the place she frequented most often, ordered a table, and when the dishes were served, Levi's began to greet Shan. Come, don't be stunned, aren't you hungry? Hurry up and eat. Shan looked at the table full of food and was very happy. Thank you husband. Husband, you are so good. Then I will not be polite. Levi was blinded by Shan's husband's shout, did not expect her to be so natural. Shan did not feel that there was anything wrong. Having begun to enjoy the food in front of you beautifully, Levi looked up at him without eating. Husband, are you disagreeing? Why don't you eat it? No. Distracted. Levi's got used to it and accepted the word. It's just that I don't know when she will be able to recover her memory, and I don't know what will happen if she recovers her memory. Definitely we'll talk about this later, and Levi's is now going to take it one step at a time. After eating, Levi's led her out of the dining room, and Shan still put her arm around Levi's. Where are we going next? Go back? Curiously, Shan asked Levi's that she really didn't know where Levi lived. No hurry, we won't go back for the time being. Do you want to go back now? Shan definitely had no opinion. No, I listened to you, so where do we go now? You come with me, let's go now. Levi's didn't use ability, but dragged Shan to run normally. Chapter 295 Shan's Fun. Caught off guard by Levi's, Shan ran with her, and the two ran through the crowded streets. Attracted some people's eyes. After all, girls with a very oriental charm like Shan are very rare. Everyone looked curiously at where the two were going, and Shan who ran was very happy. By the time Levi stopped, Shan was already panting, with a thin red color from exercise. Levi's breath did not change at all. Levi's did not use all his strength, but ran a few steps casually. Looking at Shan, who was panting on the side, he teased her with a smile. Shan, your body still needs to exercise. It's only been a few steps to pant like this. Hearing this, Shan Bai glanced at Levi's. Her physique was already very good among ordinary people. You think everyone is like you, don't you? This body is as strong as a cow. Shan was a little unhappy and glared at Levi's. Good, it's me who was wrong. Let's go in now. Levi's took Shan to an amusement park, and now it was completely dark, but the amusement park was still brightly lit. It's a little strange to see the amusement park. Why did you bring me here? Kids love it here, right? Why don't you like it here? I thought it was fun here, so let's go ahead and check it out. Without waiting for Shan's answer, Levi's pushed her into the amusement park. Shan was taken into the amusement park by Levi's, and Levi's took her everywhere to experience the amusement park. After playing around, Levi's felt very bored and not very fun. But Shan became interested at this time. Just said at the door, what is fun here, Shan? Now the most high, while playing roller coaster. Levi yawned. This thing is not as fun as the spaceship, and Shan next to him is excited. It's so exciting. Vice is really fun. Why aren't you happy? It's just a little boring. I want to go back. Levi said what he thought in his heart. He thought it could be as interesting as before, but he didn't expect that he overestimated the amusement park. Now this level is really not suitable for him, but he did not expect Shan to have such a good time. Didn't you say earlier that the child only came back to the land? You are as happy now as the children around you. Levi's attention fell on Shan's side, and it was a little curious to see Shan's fun so much. Hearing Levi's question, Shan was a little embarrassed to think of what she said when she walked in the door. I'm naive, but I haven't played enough. Shall we play a little longer? Husband. Shan hugged Levi's arm coquettishly, and her tone was sweet. Well, if you say that, I'll agree, then we'll play a little longer. Levi's is still more eaten and agrees with Shan. Okay, thank you husband. Levi's had gotten used to Sam's name and didn't try to correct it. After playing for a while, Shan also enjoyed himself. It's fun, let's come back next time. Levi's didn't want to come, but he didn't say it directly, and put it in a different way. The next time we play more exciting than this diploma feels average. In Levi's eyes, it was pure boredom. Levi's felt that he would not come a second time, and he would not come for anything. Shan was still a little disappointed when she heard the first half, but she was happy again when she heard Levi say that it would be more fun to take herself to play. Really? Great, I'm waiting for you to take me out when the time comes. Levi smiled when he heard this. Definitely, let's go back now. It's not early in the morning. Although there are still many people on the street, the shops on the street are still brightly lit. But it's really not too early, and the nightlife of bustling cities is always just starting at this time. Shan hugged Levi's arm, very clingy to Levi's. Levi's also doesn't know why Shan is so clingy after amnesia. He remembers that his personality before amnesia was not like this. But Levi's is not a doctor either, and he has not thought about things that he cannot figure out. When he returned to the door, he found that the lights in his house were on, and there were only a few people who could enter his room. Levi's thought for a moment and estimated that it was only them, opened the door and walked in. Sure enough, on the couch were the Cuckoo sisters, all waiting for Levi to return. Zero asked for flowers. Hearing the door open, they all looked to the door and saw Levi's and the Oriental woman behind him. Master, we have been waiting for you for a long time. Why are you only coming back now? Suf said as he walked up to Levi's and hugged Levi's neck affectionately. Shan was stunned on the sidelines, not understanding why there were so many girls in Levi's house. And very affectionate to Levi's, Shan was a little overwhelmed and gently pulled Levi's arm. Husband, who are these people? Are they your friends? The Cuckoo sisters heard Shan call Levi, as if they knew something about the new world. They all walked to Levi's side, and one of them called her husband. Levi's listened with a big head, knowing that the Cuckoo sisters were just trying to tease Shan. Okay, how did you find here? Levi's pushed them into the room, all standing in the doorway like they all looked like. "We are facing the master. You are very busy every day. You don't come to us. We have to go to you." Suf explained why they were here, and then looked at Shan beside Levi's. "This sister has met between us. How did the master meet her?" Hearing Suf's words, Shan looked at the others. She had indeed seen a few of them. She had seen them when she woke up before. "Yes, we have met before, and I have not said thank you to you for the previous things." Shan was very clear about this matter and thanked them politely. "No need, you should thank us for not being by your side. It was he who saved you. We just took care of you according to what he said." Suf didn't take the credit and named Levi's. "Nothing, not a big deal." Levi didn't take this matter to heart, and Shan was still a little unhappy to hear the news. Help his life, but these women are still unhappy to appear beside Levi's. "Vice, don't you introduce them? It's all women." Suf heard the dissatisfaction in Shan's words, and immediately understood what kind of mind Shan was. Chapter 296 Death Shura Field. "No need for Vice's introduction. Let's come by ourselves. What do you want to know?" Suf interrupted what Shan wanted Levi to introduce and offered to raise the topic. "I want to know what the hell is going on now." "Oh baby, I know what you want to know, and it's the same as what you think. But you should know that there is no shortage of women around quality men." Suf's point of view is more open, and how many lovers Levi has does not affect them. Shan couldn't accept it a little, and looked at Levi's, who was not speaking. "I think I need to be quiet. I'll go first." Without waiting for Levi's to speak, Shan picked up the bag beside her and went out the door. Levi's knew this would be the result, and without saying anything, watched Shan leave the room. Suf also saw Shan leaving, and looked at Levi's after seeing the figure 980 at all. "Hey, Vice, she doesn't seem to be very happy. Don't you go check it out?" Levi's sat on the couch and didn't move. "It's okay. She needs to think about it alone now." Seeing Levi like this, Suf spread her hands. "Okay." Levi's knew what was going on in Suf's little head when he looked at her eyes, and knocked on her forehead. "What are you thinking? Don't think so badly. You didn't tell me when you came tonight." Suf pitifully covered his forehead and looked at Levi's. "Ouch, master, you are so heavy. My head hurts so much. You coax me quickly." Levi's didn't use force at all. How could it hurt? And was amused by Suf like this. "You really? I didn't even use my strength." Suf will not care about this matter, but I just hurt so much, master. "Don't you coax me?" They interrupted Suf coquettishly. "Well, it's not too early, let's all rest." Levi stood up and moved his shoulders. "You're tired from rushing over, it's time to rest." Suf, who was interrupted, was a little unhappy, but Levi spoke, and Suf reluctantly followed the others upstairs. Levi's watched the back of their departure and touched his forehead. Sometimes it is not a good thing to have more women. There were more people and a little noisy, and after doing it here for a while, he felt that his head was big, and he also went upstairs. Levi's showed up at the academy punctually in the morning, and he promised Yuriko today to help her see the results of her recent training. Coming to the academy, Levi's saw a somewhat familiar figure at the entrance of the school. After walking for a while, he was stopped. Levi's determined who the person in front of him was. It was Shan, who left yesterday, and today's Shan seemed to be a little different from yesterday's. His new only had a guess in his mind, and by the time Shan spoke, Levi was sure. 11. "You recovered your memory?" Shan nodded. "Yes." After speaking, Shan lowered her head. This matter is really a little humiliating. She first hugged Levi to call her husband. "What did you remember? Is there anything important?" Shan told Levi's everything she remembered, and then waited for Levi's reaction. Levi's also thought that she had resumed her time on Skull Island, and now it seems that she is only remembering some of the previous events. But to be on the safe side, Levi deleted everything about King Kong and Skull Island. Shan only felt herself in a trance for a moment, and then she came to her senses. "Sorry, I was a little distracted just now." "What did you just say?" "I didn't say anything, just asked what do you plan to do next." She must have come to find herself for a reason, otherwise she would not have been guarding the entrance of the academy. "Yes, I do have something to say, that is, we both have reasons for the previous things, and now we are clear." 17. Shan said this first, and then pinched her fingers. "Also, I'm going back to say goodbye to you and the research institute, and Ben is urging me to go back." "This thing?" "Then I know. Bye." Levi's was not surprised to hear that she had come to say goodbye. She looked at Levi's, as if waiting for some other answer from Levi's, and Levi's noticed her eyes. "Is there anything else you want to tell me?" "No." "Then I'll see you later." Shan shook her head, waved goodbye to Levi's, and the figure disappeared into the street. She was still wearing the cheongsam that Levi's took her to change yesterday, and nothing changed, only people. After she left, Levi walked into the campus and saw Yuriko. Standing not far away. Yuriko looked at the two and looked at Levi with some puzzlement. "Big brother, that girl doesn't seem to be very happy. What happened to you, Mum?" Levi shook his head. "It's nothing. Children don't want to be curious about adults." Yuriko, who heard this, was a little unhappy. "But big brother, I'm not a child anymore. You can see that I have grown a lot taller." Levi's heard Yuriko's words and looked at Yuriko seriously. He had not looked at it seriously before. It seems to be taller, but you are too thin, eat more. Even though Yuriko is taller, she still looks very thin, and she can blow down when the wind blows. I can't do anything about this, big brother. No matter how I eat it, I don't know why this happens. Yuriko also thought about this matter, but after a long time with a nutritionist, it is still no different from now. It's okay, just be in good health, and the rest has nothing to do with it. Let's go and let me see if you've improved lately. In fact, Yuriko has improved a lot from the beginning of the period, and now those who are close to her will no longer be injured. It's only a slight impact, but it doesn't affect normal life anymore. So during this time, Yuriko also made a lot of friends, and the person 3.5 was visible to the naked eye. HMPH, I'm ready. Vijay will look at me in a few days. Yuriko has been preparing for a long time, and she plans to show her hand in front of Levi's. It seems that you have been prepared. I will take a good look at what surprises you will bring me today. Levi's didn't think about Shan's affairs anymore, and his attention shifted to Yuriko's body. Yuriko bounced along the way, meeting familiar people and greeting them. Morning, Ace. I was about to train you together. Yuriko is not only much more cheerful, but now she also knows how to invite others. The girl named Ace was pleasantly surprised. Oh, Yuriko, can I really? Mr. Vice doesn't mind. Vice big brother is not so stingy, definitely will agree. Chapter 297 Embarrassing Yuriko. Ace was very surprised and agreed to Yuriko's invitation. Thank you so much, honey, then let's go. Ace hugged Yuriko very affectionately and went to the training room with Yuriko. The training room is just a few steps away, and it will soon arrive. Levi's unfastened his coat and put it on a chair next to him. How are you going to test it? Any comments? Yuriko heard and said her plan for the day, and after listening to it, Levi's finally knew why she invited her classmates to come with her. It turns out that you are colluding, so come as you say, just to see how well you cooperate with your teammates before. Levi and the two walked to the middle platform and waited for the two to attack. I don't use ability, and you win whatever you can touch in my corners. Yuriko and Ace, who were standing opposite Levi's, looked at each other, and the two already had a plan in their hearts. From the left and right sides rushed towards Levi's. Levi's saw that the figure of 10 to the two rushed up did not move, waiting for their attack. The first to strike was Ace, who used his ability to trap Levi for a short time. After determining that 100% hit Levi's, Yuriko's ability caught up in the next second. This imprisoned ability, Levi's felt, but not enough for Levi's. He dodged in a very difficult position, and the attack of the two failed. And Ace's confinement ability is also limited. The three are now a position swap, and Levi stands where they used to stand. In such a competition, Yuriko and Ace were both a little tired and gasped. But he still didn't touch a little corner of Levi's clothes, and Levi saw that the two were almost at their limit. The competition was stopped, otherwise these two would definitely not be able to get up tomorrow. Okay, let's try here today. It's not good for you two to go down. Still losing, but Yuriko is not discouraged. She learned a lot of very useful things while fighting Levi's. After all, in terms of combat experience, Yuriko is not as skilled as Levi's. Thank you, Mr. Vice. Teacher, you have worked hard. Ace is the most excited today, knowing that there is usually nothing to meet Levi's, and today is Levi personally taught. Such an opportunity was so rare that Ace was thrilled. Come on, your cooperation is still okay. If you run in more, it will be stronger. Levi picked up his coat and headed out the door. Yuriko caught up with Levi's from behind. Vice big brother, what are you going to do? I'm going to be with you. Do you want to go too? Okay, let's go. Levi stood in place waiting for Yuriko to catch up with him, and the two walked side by side. When leaving, Yuriko did not forget to say goodbye to her friend. Goodbye, Ace, we'll make an appointment later. Ace waved at him too. Goodbye. Levi took Yuriko to the place where she used to play golf. That's it, let's relax. Yuriko didn't expect Levi's to have this hobby, and looked at how Levi's played with some curiosity. After Levi's shot a shot, he saw her looking at him curiously. Do you want to try it? Yuriko took the club from Levi's hand and swung it twice. Any rules? Just hit the ball into the hole? Levi said simply about the rule. In fact, there are not many requirements, just one or two. After listening to it, Yuriko understood. This matter is simple. I understand. You try it now. I told you about the action before. Levi stood on the sidelines and watched Yuriko play to see how she would score. Yuriko did as Levi said with precautions and posture, and confidently swung her club. Under Levi's watchful eye, Yuriko forcefully knocked out a piece of turf in front of the ball. Levi's gaze followed the turf far away, and then fell to the ground. The force was still mastered, and the turf covered the hole. Levi's didn't hold back, and PSSTs laughed. Ha 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 ha, how did you manage Yuriko? Yuriko was laughed at by Levi's, and her face turned red all at once, which was indeed too embarrassing. Fortunately, Levi is the only one here, and if there are outsiders in Yuriko, she will want to leave now. Saying something, a voice came from a distance. What are you laughing at? I heard your laughter over there. The person who came was Cyclops, who passed by just in time to see Levi and Yuriko here. When I walked in, I found that there was a missing piece of turf next to Yuriko, which was a little strange. Why is there a missing piece of this turf? No one should steal it, right? After speaking, Cyclops seemed to think of something and looked at Yuriko, who was standing next to him. Yuriko, this turf. Cyclops didn't say the latter words, but the meaning was obvious. Laughing tearfully, Levi's held Cyclops by the shoulders. That's right, as you think, Yuriko did it. Yuriko's face was smoking now, and it was too late to stop Levi's from speaking out. Levi's told Cyclops about it, and Cyclops laughed twice when he found out. 957 saw Yuriko's shy appearance and comforted her. It's okay, this thing is normal, let's practice more. Yuriko didn't want to talk now, and silently picked up the turf to fill the gap. Yuriko got better after making it up. I definitely won't make such a low-level mistake this time, just watch. Yuriko is now full of confidence and ready to show a hand to both of them. Levi still had a smile on her face, watching Yuriko wait for her to show them a hand. At this time, Yuriko was really attentive, and her little face was full of seriousness, planning to wash away her shame. Cyclops and Levi watched as Yuriko hit the ball, and the perfect parabola flew out, finally falling into the mouth of the cave in the distance. Yuriko breathed a sigh of relief when she saw the hole. Looking at Levi's, how's it going? I just made a mistake in front of me, and that's what I really do. Yes, the front is all mistakes. This is the real strength of our Yuriko. Levi knew that the child still had to coax a little, otherwise he would be really angry and would not be able to coax it at that time. Cyclops nodded. Good, very good, I'll try it too. Cyclops took a pole and swung twice towards the lawn. After placing the ball, I estimated the position and made a perfect post. Chapter 298 Female Hulk. After the three of them played for a while, they went back. Levi returned to the room. The Cuckoo sisters had prepared dinner and were waiting for him to return. Several people were preparing a large meal, and Levi's looked at the table a little strangely. What day is it? How did you prepare so much food? And they said in unison, guess what, if you can remember. Now it was Levi's turn to get out of his head, and he went through all the days in his head, and none of them matched today. I really didn't think about it. It seems like nothing special. The Cuckoo sisters also showed such an expression. Actually, it's all lying to you. There is no special festival. We want to make you food. Suf decrypts Levi and presses him to the table. Sit down, let's eat together and don't think about anything. Levi sat down, poured wine in hand. The food was fed to Suf and Levi's, and Levi finished dinner. He was still a little uncomfortable like this, and after eating, he sat in the living room, a little suspicious. You really don't have any other requirements? We do have one if you say that. Do you want to hear it? Suf is very ghostly. Levi's heard this and knew that the few of them seemed to have premeditated. Talk about it. I can try it if I can. Levi's didn't say it very much, and asked Suf to speak about their request first. It's that we want to see your dragon form, and it would be better if you could take us out to play. Levi's had only taken them out once, and they had been looking forward to it for a long time. Now in the city, this matter is not easy to handle. I'll take you to other places later. It's not a difficult thing to do, and Levi's will take them to play if they are happy. Suf hugged Levi's excitedly, and by the way, 2 mouthfuls came to Levi's face. It's amazing, I'm going to share it with them. After speaking, he turned his head and went into the kitchen. Levi sat in the living room and watched their figures in the kitchen, seeing them excited and a little incomprehensible. But he didn't dwell on this matter, and turned to watch TV. The Cuckoo sisters, who had cleaned up the kitchen, sat down around Levi's. When the time was almost over, Levi's appeared on Skull Island with a few people. When Levi's stepped into this place, King Kong felt it, and found Levi's who had just landed. Levi saw Kong's huge, bright eyes in the dark night. Did we disturb you to rest? Jian Jinggang shook his head, indicating that he was not disturbed. It's okay, you go back to sleep. I don't need you here. King Kong did not leave when he heard this, but found a place to sit down very clearly. That is, I'm watching you from the sidelines. Levi's didn't want to drive him away when he saw him like this, and went with him. The Cuckoo sisters were a little curious about King Kong, and they hadn't seen him yet. Before he looked at it for long, Levi's had transformed into the form of a dragon. King Kong subconsciously became vigilant, and the dragon Levi's turned into gave him a little pressure, but he sensed that there was no malice towards him. It's not so nervous, looking at Levi's, who is about the same size as himself. After spreading his wings, Levi's carried the Cuckoo sisters onto his back. A wing flew up, and the Cuckoo sisters looked very excited at this time, making a cry on Levi's back. Levi's flight was still very fast, taking them around the sky a few times, feeling that the time was almost the same before they landed on the ground and changed back into a normal human being, straightening out his clothes. King Kong looked very fascinated, but he didn't seem to be able to fly, and he was a little envious that Levi could fly. The Cuckoo sisters were now satisfied, and one of them kissed Levi's. Vice, you're amazing, I like you so much. Levi's was a little helpless and walked in front of King Kong. King Kong? I'm leaving. Goodbye. It's not too early. Levi's wants to go back, and Kong understands what Levi means. Following his look, he waved at Levi's. After saying goodbye, Levi left with the Cuckoo sisters, who were very curious about Kong. Vice, what is your relationship with him? You guys look familiar. King Kong is fine, provided that you don't provoke him. And when there is a chance to let you get to know him. Levi's didn't say much else and said two important words, and then let them know when he had time. During this time, Levi's was like a retired uncle, visiting everywhere and playing in the homes of people he knew. Time flies, and Asgard's side is settled. Once settled, Thor invited Levi over to celebrate, along with Dear Knightley and others. Everyone got together again, and Levi's came alone. On the way in, I also saw Tony and Banner had a woman with him. Seeing their curious eyes, Banner also knew what they were curious about. This is my cousin, because of some accidents, so she studied with me for the time being. Banner didn't say the detailed reason. The girl next to him greeted the two of them generously. Hi, my name is Jennifer Susan Walters. You can call me Jennifer or Susan, I don't mind. Hello, our cousin's partner. My name is Tony and his name is Levi's. The girls all spoke, politely retreating. Tony also replied. I know you guys, I see you on Lee's TV a lot. Susan had seen them, and this Banner was watching a few people chatting well, but now standing at the door, she urged them to go in. Hurry up and go in, don't wait at the door. Thor is still waiting for us to enter. Tony also felt that it was not good to stand at the door at this time, and several people walked in together. Thor was already waiting for them, and Thor's place now was far from comparable to where he had lived before. But Levi tacitly did not say anything about it, and it was Thor's sadness. You guys are here, hurry in, I have a lot of things for you. Thor was still happy to see them, and Ha beckoned them into his home, which was already a small house, which seemed a little crowded after a few people entered. Everyone found their own place to sit. This is my gift for you. I hope you like it. Chapter 299 Black Widow's Missing. Tony said and handed the things in his hand to Thor, and after Tony moved, Levi's also handed Thor what he had sent. It's a little bit of our heart. Thor was very happy to receive the gift and put it on the table. When they arrive, we can start eating. Thor is very happy now. After all, the people of Adgas have really settled down now. No longer people who had nowhere to go. The joy at this time diluted Thor's sadness and depression some time ago. Several people sat on the sofa and chatted, and the atmosphere was very relaxed. After a few people chatted for a while, the others almost arrived, and the last one to arrive was Black Widow, standing at the door and looking at several people in the house. Everyone, I'm not late, am I? The time is just right, and we are ready to start. Black Widow handed Thor the gift he had prepared in his hand and sat down next to Levi's. It's okay if I'm not late. Let me see what I ate today. Black Widow swept around the table, very satisfied. Thor, you really work hard. It's all delicious. Thor, who received praise 633, couldn't see his eyes anymore. If you like it, we can get together later. If you say that, we won't be polite. Let's hurry up. With that, Tony opened the wine he had in his hand and poured a glass for everyone. Cheers, I wish you all a better and better. Everyone took a sip, and after Susan finished drinking, her body suddenly became larger and moved the top of the table to the opposite side. Everyone at the table looked at Susan in shock, and they didn't drink the wine in their hands. Susan also knew what was going on and was stunned for a moment. Sorry everyone, did it scare you? Not really, after all, the Banner transformation is scarier than you. Tony, who has seen many times Banner transformation, laughed and eased the atmosphere on the table, and everyone laughed after hearing it. Indeed, now we'll not be able to eat our meal tonight. Banner, who was teased, was not angry at all, and smiled and took a sip of the wine in his hand. You're exaggerating. Be careful that Hulk retaliates against you. Don't. We're just telling the truth, not lying. Susan can't change back like this for the time being, so she can only continue to eat with him like this. Well, we're here for today, so let's not talk about my cousin. The conversation turned from Banner to Thor. What's Thor's plan after that? What are you going to do in the future? Several people chatted about it, and now all that was left in Asgard were civilians. To live on Earth, there is still a long way to go in the future. Look what kind of law they need, and I will protect them well. Thor's words were like an oath and a promise, and there was silence on the table for a while. Levi's patted Thor on the shoulder. Man, don't be discouraged, the future must be good. After all, are you still there? Okay, let's eat quickly, otherwise it will be cold later, and it won't be delicious. In the end, Thor and Banner are drunk, the two good brothers hug each other, and the bullhead does not chat with a horse's mouth. Levi sat on the sofa. He drank a little more today, but his consciousness was still there, but his reaction was a little slower. Black Widow Levi poured a glass of plain water and handed it to him. Are you feeling okay now? For now, I'm fine. Levi's took a sip of plain water from Black Widow's hand and recovered slightly. Looking at the messy ground, are they okay? They all looked drunk. I don't think they're very good. Bag will definitely wake up tomorrow with a headache. Black Widow answered Levi's, and Levi got up from the couch. I felt a little stuffy inside the house, so I went out for a walk and came back later. Black Widow also stood up when he heard Levi's words. I'm going with you. I also feel a little bored. Levi nodded and walked out of Thor's house first. Outside his house was an open space, and fresh air poured into Levi's nose. Levi's mind became clearer, and the smell of alcohol on his body began to dissipate in the breeze. The two walked slowly on the grass. Neither of them spoke first, but walked quietly. Vice. I'm in. What's wrong? Levi's heard Black Widow call his name and replied subconsciously. There was a long silence on the Black Widow side, when Levi's wanted to ask what was going on. I felt Black Widow take her hand and press it against her scalding face. I missed you. Have you missed me during this time? Black Widow was very straightforward, and didn't want to wait for Levi's answer and hooked Levi's neck. As the two of them spoke with their foreheads against their foreheads, they could feel the breath exhaled from each other. You're not going to miss me, are you? Look at me so plainly today. Levi's reached out and pressed Black Widow's head. I guess if you try it. After speaking, the two were enthusiastically entangled, and even the moonlight in the sky was a little dim. Levi's sanity is still there. It's not a good place now, and the two stay outside for a while and go back. Thor and Banner remained in the same position, but they were all asleep now. Susan was still awake, but not conscious, and saw the two come in to say hello. You guys, hiccup, back? What time is it now? Do you have to go back? Levi's, seeing them like this, would definitely not be able to go back tonight, and helped Susan to the sofa to lie down and cover a blanket. The few people left were upset, and Levi's couldn't help it. After sending them all to the bed in the room, and after dealing with them, Levi left. Black Widow looked at the three people sleeping crookedly on the bed. Is there really no problem with them like this? I don't think there should be a problem. Let's go first. Levi's glanced at the sleeping trio, and there should be no problem. Black Widow nodded at this and followed Levi out of Thor's house. It was dark outside, because Thor's home was in a more remote place and there was no light. No hustle and bustle of the city, very quiet. But now Levi's and Black Widow have no intention of enjoying the scenery at this time, and they both have a common goal. Chapter 300 Levi's shock. Levi glanced at Black Widow slightly, and his heart can be said to have mixed feelings. He has been in this world for a while, and he can also be said to have met many people. But in many cases, it is not always what others want. At the moment, Levi's looked at the desolate night, which was already quiet and the night was getting darker. Black Widow Natasha Romanoff looked at Levi and said slowly, I've arranged it over there. Do you have anything to say? At the moment, Levi's shook his head, and at the moment he didn't have much to say. For Natasha Romanoff's support for him for such a long time, Levi's feels that it has been quite good. In many cases, some of his mistakes will be tolerated by the other party, which makes Levi extremely satisfied, and as Levi who has traveled through, he is still very rational. He knew that not everyone would necessarily love him and tolerate everything about him, so Black Widow Natasha Romanoff's tolerance for him is pretty good. At this moment, the two gradually walked to a small alley. This made the two slightly stunned, and when they walked, they didn't pay attention to actually walking to a dead end. Thinking of this, Levi's sighed slightly. After hesitating for a moment, Levi's was ready to leave. Leaving here with Natasha Romanoff, Levi is not a fool, and in many cases he knows it very well. The other party is willing to accompany him out to play at this time, and it is obvious that he has acquiesced to something. There is no need to be too reserved, which is not good for both of them. At this moment, Levi pondered slightly in his heart, but still said, Let's go, Natasha Romanoff. Black Widow Natasha Romanoff nodded. This woman who can be said to be famous in SHIELD, in front of Levi's, is as pitiful as a little girl. If you let the rest of SHIELD see it, your eyes will be shocked. When did Natasha Romanoff become like this? Just as the two were about to leave, where the alley left, three stout black-skinned men suddenly appeared and walked over. Looking at the two, he said, Hand over the money, and we'll let you go. A man at the head of the moment, looking at Natasha Romanoff's beautiful figure, showed a hint of salivation in his eyes. However, at this moment, he did not immediately attack, and at this moment his eyes glanced slightly at the man next to him. The other party's name was Jock, the eldest brother of his three. The other party's brain is smarter, and in many cases, relying on the wisdom of the other party also saves them a lot of trouble. Before Jock could speak, the man at the moment wasn't going to do anything. Levi raised his brows slightly, which made him a little surprised. With his strength and status, he would actually encounter such an attack from this little minions, which made Levi can't help but laugh in his heart at the moment. The other party is simply looking for his own death, which makes Levi, who is at the moment, slowly stand up, slowly looked at the three people, and the three people at this moment actually felt the presence of pressure for a while, which made people feel a sense of fear. At the moment, Jock felt a slight certainty in his heart and recovered, and at this moment he carefully looked at Levi and Natasha Romanoff, who could be said to have no problems. It can be said that there are not many places to carry weapons, and it is reasonable to say that there is no threat to the two of them. It seems that he was thinking too much just now, and Jock at the moment pondered slightly in his heart. I looked at Levi's somewhat fine skin and tender flesh, and looked like a weak Asian man. Jock thought slightly in his heart, the other party's appearance, it is obviously impossible to have any threat to himself. At the moment, Jock looked again at Black Widow Natasha Romanoff. The other party's full and elegant body made the three of them look sideways. Jock secretly said in his heart, where did this stunner come from? I would actually look at such a little white face. Jock's heart was slightly touched, and at the moment, he looked at Natasha Romanoff's body, and an evil thought came out of his heart. At the moment, he suddenly felt bad in his heart. In the past time, although there was no such scene, it is reasonable to say that he finally maintained his sanity and did not waver. But now what's going on? Jock at the moment is also a little strange. Jock's heart relaxed slightly, but he still made a decision to come out. Since he has done this, even if he is impulsive once, it will not hurt. Middle.0 Ask for flowers. It's not impossible for Dark Uncle to hide there for a while. Thinking of this, Jock's heart must have risen slightly, and at the moment, he said, hand over the money, we'll let you out of here, and if you don't blame me for making you suffer. Jock waved the knife in his hand as he said this, and the knife at the moment emitted a cold light. It's a little intimidating. At the moment, Levi and Natasha Romanoff looked at each other and became speechless. This is where the punk came from, naturally found on the head of the two of them. This made Natasha Romanoff at the moment feel a little faceless. Levi's chuckled slightly and said, okay, how much do you want? I have it here. After saying this, Levi slowly took out a large handful of bills from his pocket, and the green light directly illuminated the eyes of the three people. At the moment, the three of Jock suddenly had green eyes. Today's luck is so good, as soon as it opens, the rhythm of eating for 3 years comes. At the moment, Jock looked at the dollar that fell to the ground slightly, and at the moment he calculated slightly, this large sum was at least tens of thousands of dollars. As for the question of why the other party carries so many dollars, at the moment, Timson does not plan to care too much. Since the other party is willing to do this, then how can he not get up as he wishes? At the moment, Jock guided his little brother with a look and slowly stepped forward, wanting to try to get the money. Levi smiled at the moment, as if he had a grasp in his heart. At the moment, Jock's eyes felt a little bad, but looking at the dollar on the ground, Jock at the moment also knew that even if he tried to stop the other party, there was no possibility. Everyone, including themselves, cannot resist these temptations, and this is something that everyone can be sure of. At the moment, Jock felt a slight feeling in his heart, and hesitated for a while. At the moment, Jock slowly looked at several people. Looking at this dollar, at the moment, there was also a glimmer of light in his eyes. If I had had this money back then, maybe my sister wouldn't have died and beg. Chapter 301 Jock's shock. But at the moment has also passed, everything has disappeared, nothing exists, which makes Jock at the moment slightly depressed. At the moment, Jock looked at the brother who was slowly walking back, and a stone fell in his heart, and at the moment, his heart slowly relaxed. The city has also recently spawned some vigilantes, who like to strike in such situations if necessary. Ink still wasn't going to do anything. At the moment, Natasha Romanoff looked at Levi and was slightly puzzled. Is this what to do? Just let the other person go? This made Levi at the moment also slightly visible. Levi slowly looked at Natasha Romanoff and said, what's wrong? Did I not do it well? I feel okay. 680 At the moment, Natasha Romanoff looked at Levi slightly speechlessly. Judging from the brutality of Levi's previous actions, the other party today, these three people did not have the opportunity to walk out alive in the past. Today's willingness to let each other go, which made Natasha Romanoff at the moment also a little curious. Has Levi encountered anything good recently? At the moment, Natasha Romanoff didn't know the answer. While the two were chatting, the three of them hurriedly began to pack up their things, but at the moment there was a trace of surprise. One of them slowly said, this girl is amazing, there is no need to let it go. Jock said angrily, didn't I tell you before? Don't you have to be troubled? One person at the moment did not pay attention. At the moment he looked at Natasha Romanoff with a covetous gaze. At this moment he secretly looked at himself in his heart. The only person on the other side who has combat power is that man, as long as he deals with the other party first. The other woman, don't you let yourself be slaughtered? Thinking of this, he hurriedly lifted the knife and walked up. At the moment, Jock was slightly dissatisfied in his heart, but in this situation now, he has no good way. The three of them must advance and retreat together. Only in this way can you fulfill your own practices and wishes. At the moment, Jock also felt slightly, all three of them had weapons in their hands, and if they wanted to do it, they still needed to make sheep's tails for them. Only in this case will they not be tracked down on their heads. Jock and the other person at the moment, after glancing at each other, also walked up. At the moment, Natasha Romanoff was slightly speechless. The other party was going to kill himself. Obviously Levi's was going to let them go. At this time, I actually have to continue to do this. It's just looking for death. Natasha Romanoff slowly took out a small weapon from his waist. Although he did not bring a gun when he arrived, it was enough for Natasha Romanoff to clean up the people. After all, Natasha Romanoff is the ace agent of SHIELD, and in many cases, handles a lot of tasks and events. Like these three little minions, you can take care of them at will. At the moment, Levi suddenly reached out to stop Natasha Romanoff's shot. To Natasha Romanoff, this made her slightly stunned. What was this going to do? Was he going to do it himself? At the moment, Levi smiled slightly and said, "Today I am the Lord. You are a guest. If there is no need, let me make a move." At the moment, Natasha Romanoff thought slightly, but looking at Levi's somewhat firm thoughts, she also knew the other party's answer at this moment. Levi stepped forward slowly. Although he has gained a lot of ability now, his favorite is the ability that first came into the world. Its name is, One Side Passes. Levi walked up to Natasha Romanoff with a big grin. At the moment the three of them were slightly puzzled, but since the other party wanted to find death, he couldn't blame himself. Anyway, with that money in hand, even if things are done, I won't have too much trouble to come to the door. At this moment, Jock stood in front of Levi's first, and slashed at Levi's hand. This knife is enough to make an ordinary person lose his combat effectiveness and rebellion against ability. At the moment, Jock had a slight bad premonition in his heart. But since he had already made a move, he really had no room for regret. When the sound came, Jock at the moment suddenly flew out upside down, a few meters away. At the moment, Jock felt as if he had been hit head-on by a car, and his internal organs were tingling. The other people at the moment looked at Levi's smooth and white hands, and suddenly felt a little unhappy. Jock hurriedly shouted, "He's mutant. Hurry up." At the moment, Jock has awakened to the fact that the other party's fearless situation obviously has a special ability in hand. Due to the emergence of a person, most of the current mutants have directly obtained the right to act in the market, rather than hiding as before. It is very likely that the other party is some kind of mutant teasing a few of himself here. Since he has already made a move, Jock knows that he has no chance to wait for the other party to keep his hand, if it is to be himself. In the case of the other party attacking him like this, I didn't let the other party go of any possibility anymore. At the moment, Jock felt a little sad in his heart. Hunting geese all day, but being caught by the wild geese, this is his fate. At the moment, Jock was not too sure about the outcome of his people. At the moment, Jock suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The injury to his internal organs soon flew in, and at the moment he felt his mind sink a little. There is a possibility of passing out at any time, but Jock knew that he couldn't pass out when he decided. In this case, it must be solved that the other party is able to arrange their own treatment. If one of them faints directly through 0.1, then the three of them are dead. Jock didn't think that the other party would be so kind to send him to the hospital to recuperate, and it was more likely to leave himself alone. If this is the result, with the internal injuries he has suffered, he will soon die of organ failure and even damage. So I can't pass out no matter what. At the moment, Levi frowned slightly, although he had exerted as little power as possible. But the backlash received by the other party is logically enough to make the other party die directly on the spot, and in this case, he can actually speak out. At the moment, Levi slowly said, "I gave you a chance, but I didn't expect you to want to find death, which is indeed no wonder to me." Chapter 302 Natasha Romanoff's shock. At the moment, Jock looked a little uncomfortable. At the moment he felt some sharp pain in his stomach, and he panicked in his heart, which he knew very well at the moment. This injury of his own can be said to be very serious. The stomach is the most sensitive place in the body, and if there is a problem or damage, it will be the first warning here. At the moment, he could not have been more clear. The other two at the moment trembled slightly in their hearts, but looking at Jock's somewhat firm words, the two at the moment began to plan to trust each other again. At the moment, the two slowly took out a revolver from their hands, which was the only weapon the two of them had, although it was not as good as the one on the market, but it was enough if it was used to attack. For today's situation, the two can be said to have been prepared for a long time, and many times they have already made their own plans. At this moment, Jock was slightly calculating in his heart, but he was already powerless, and the only thing he could do now was wait for the end of things as soon as possible. At the moment, Jock felt a slight trepidation in his heart. At this moment, Levi laughed heartily. Looking at the looks of the two, he knew that what he did was wrong from the beginning. But this is not to blame themselves, this is their own death. At the moment, Levi stood up slightly and walked slowly towards the two. The two at the moment were slightly frightened, but in this situation, they also knew the answer, that is, to deal with them as soon as possible. At the moment, Levi waved his hand and slowly looked at the two. The two were also a little overwhelmed, and the trigger in their hands was unconsciously buckled, and at the moment, they thought slightly in their hearts, if the other party died, my own crisis is also in the past, which is also a good thing for the two of them. The two at the moment thought slightly in their hearts and looked at Levi's. But at the moment, Levi's looked at the two with a slight smile, and at the moment he also secretly made a decision in his heart. The bullet slowly hit Levi's chest, but the two bullets bounced back directly as if they had touched an extremely elastic object. At the moment, Levi was slightly amused. The other party's courage was so big, this time, and dared to play this set with himself. The bullet bounced back and hit the two men. Levi slowly stepped forward, although he didn't like to kill. But since the other party had to find death, he couldn't complain about himself. Natasha Romanoff is justified in this. She doesn't think there is anything wrong with the death of the three punks. Since they want to find death, then even if something happens, they can't blame the two of them. Whoever points a weapon at someone else will eventually die under others, and those who kill with a sword will eventually die under the sword. This is the law and code of the world. Since the other party is so willing to find death, the only thing he has to do is to complete the other party. Just as Levi was about to take action to solve the three of them, there was a sudden cry outside the alley at the moment. Stop! Levi's was slightly dissatisfied. What was the other party doing? Was he teaching himself to do things? It's just hilarious. Levi's exerted a slight force in his hand, and suddenly, these people also shook their bodies and died of blood. At the moment, Jock finally looked at Levi with his own eyes, wanting to remember Levi's appearance, and at the moment, he suddenly remembered the identity of the other party. Who is the other party? At the moment, he couldn't help but feel a sense of remorse, but now he has no regret medicine to take. Since it has been done, it is only natural to bear the corresponding price for it. A person hurriedly walked over outside the alley at the moment, looking at the few people who fell to the ground said with a slight dissatisfaction, "Why do you bother?" The person who came was dressed brightly, and her body was vividly and exquisitely displayed in just the right clothes. Only the blindfold in the corner of her eye prominently reveals her identity, and she is a police officer. At the moment, Levi chuckled slightly, looking at the other party's dress. He knew that all the other parties' every move could be said to be extremely clear. But compared with yourself, in many cases, the other party is still too childish. Levi slowly said, "You say your name first, and I'll talk to you." The girl was slightly stunned, and slowly said, "My code name is Starlight." At the moment, Levi was stunned in his heart, and looking at this name, at the moment, he couldn't help but recall a trace of the other party's name according to Levi's memory. It is a name that only has been in an American drama. Could it be that the world is a hodgepodge? Although he had long known that Avengers and X-Men were different worldviews, he had never realized that this existed at the time. I've always wanted to definitely think this is the Marvel Universe, but watching the appearance of the Starlight, Levi's at the moment also understood something slightly. But it could be your own mistake. Maybe it's just a passerby who casually chooses a name, which is his own thoughts. This possibility is not unprecedented. At the moment, Levi thought slightly, a real world needs 190 logic. The pure world of comics and movies sometimes does not specifically explain these problems. But in the world, Levi at the moment was vaguely reminded of the potion Magneto's research, the potion and instrument that could theoretically turn all Americans into mutant. Although there were some problems at the time of creation, many people who used this ability died of organ failure. But Levi's does not feel that this situation cannot be improved, and if Magneto can invest more effort and manpower and material resources to improve, it may not be able to cause reasonable potions to come out. The new agent was obtained later, and it may have become the existence of the number 5 compound. Speaking of the existence of number 5 chemical compound, it is very similar to the drug function made by Magneto. After using the Magneto, it can be said that it is easy to die directly after that. But the 5th combination is different. If the other party is used in adults, it will cause the life expectancy to fade. But if it is used in the hands of infants and young children, there is no such problem. This made Levi's at the moment also calculate slightly. If he did not appear in this world again, he might have made the corresponding potion one day in the future. Chapter 303 Starlight's Shock. These potions are nothing compared to themselves, but compared to many people, it is already a treasure. This is the difference in the world line. If the potion that suppresses mutant is successfully developed first, then it is the plot of the Return of the Twilight Wolf. 18 years later, most of the mutant will lose their ability and be left to chance. But if Magneto's potion had been developed first, it might have been Homelander's script. At this moment, Levi thought slightly. For Homelander at the moment, there is no way to determine whether the other party has been born or not. It can even be said that if the other party has not yet obtained the possibility of ability, it is not impossible. But that's nothing for Levi's at the moment. Even if any Superman youth version of Homelander stood in front of him, he had nothing to fear. Although the other party's ability is extremely powerful, there are still many problems. The funniest thing is that the other party, as a villain, actually has the same weakness as a positive hero. If you are threatened, your family will compromise. From this point of view, maybe the other party's nature is not bad. Just like his son, he is not bad in nature, but in the end, under Homelander's personal teaching, a trace of evil thoughts also came out. If someone raised him in a family like Superman Clark, the other party would have had a better outcome. That's a good thing for a lot of people, but it's nothing for Levi's. At the moment, Levi thought slightly. For the super ability he originally obtained, the ability of one side, although because of the system, the same can be used without computing power, but this ability has not been able to grow. The ability, development and use of the school city are all based on computing power to make better use of this ability. If you want to grow this ability, then there is only one choice, that is to try to use this ability with computing power. However, If you want to use it in this way, you need a special formula, and most people in Cuckoo City have their own unique formula for the use of this ability. Even for users of the same type of ability, the frequency of calculation of the formula used when using ability is different. If he was sure he wanted to try, Levi's at the moment began to think about what of the more famous mathematicians, or physicists, in the world, could also try to accomplish his goals if he asked each other for help. For the use of this ability, Levi knows that the so-called super ability and magic are actually the same source of power, in the school city. But it was Arista who transformed the magic and accomplished the feat with the help of a Mephisto. Magic that originally required complex rituals and religious methods was transformed by Arista to be able to use modern computing power. You can use the super ability. This is enough to make Levi at the moment admire each other's ability very much. The other party can be said to have created the technology camp by itself. Before him, the technology camp did not have the ability to compete with the religious camp, although relying on weapons of mass destruction barely managed to achieve a balance. But the end result was still a bit undesirable, so Arista's organization was able to grow as soon as possible. If it were not for the strong support of the countries at that time, there was no possibility that Arista's school city would have had a chance of success. At the moment, Levi slowly looked at the Starlight, as if he had seen a treasure, and his eyes were full of light. At the moment, he also continued to speak. Why are you stopping it? I want to know the answer. Starlight at the moment was slightly nervous, but still firmly said, they have no ability to resist anymore, and there is no need to continue to kill them. Levi slowly shook his head. At the moment of Starlight is not yet her in the later stage, and the other party's ability is also the weakest. At this time, her mind was full of so-called love and justice, and she would not wake up until she suffered a blow in the later stage. At the moment, Levi said slightly, you know, if it were us who failed, what would they do? At the moment Starlight was slightly stunned, and for this question, at the moment, he didn't think about the answer slightly. Starlight at this moment after hesitation for a while, he said, they're going to take all your money and leave, right? At the moment, Levi shook his head and continued, you're thinking too well. If the two of us did fail, he would kill me and plunge his weapon into my chest. Wait until it's confirmed I'm dead. To Natasha Romanoff. 11. There may be corresponding police officers looking for clues later, but in the end they have already fled, and they may not return in a few years. Do you have any plans to stop me in this case? At the moment Starlight had a slight headache. Levi's words could be said to have stung her heart, and at the moment she realized for the first time what if it wasn't for the other person's words. So maybe something is wrong on your side? Such a possibility is not unprecedented. At the moment, Levi slowly looked at the Starlight, waiting for the other party's answer. At the moment, the Starlight was slightly overwhelmed by Levi's eyes, and he unconsciously took a step back. At this moment, Natasha Romanoff slowly said, don't be difficult for other people's little girls. It doesn't make sense. At the moment, Levi's looked at Nata, Lizao, Sha, his heart warmed slightly, and said, since you opened your mouth, then I also need to give you a face. I can be sure of this. At the moment, Starlight suddenly said, but your ability is enough to solve all the problems before they make a move. It stands to reason that no one will die. At the moment, Levi slowly looked at the Starlight and continued to say coldly, what stupidity are you doing? The first thing you need to know is that we are not all New Yorkers are super able, most of them are just ordinary people. I also hope you can understand this. Have you ever wondered what would happen if two ordinary people met the three of them? At the moment, the Starlight also thought slightly, if this is the case. Chapter 304 Levi's Practice. At this moment, Levi thought slightly in his heart, and for the child of Starlight. He thought slightly at this moment, and he didn't know if he had to subdue the other party. For Starlight's opinion, Levi can make a decision that the other party is too immature. A lot of things I didn't see too clearly, I wore too much. It directly leads to the final result. If you don't care about the other party, relying on the other party's ability will not be too damaged. It is nothing more than some physical torture. This is just a small thing for Starlight. At the moment, Levi thought slightly, and the other party's ability was nothing to himself. A large light bulb is only in the final period to have some effect, but the effect can be said to be a very small one. In many cases, it exists as an atmosphere group. But for Levi's, this is not a problem. For Levi's, although there are many problems on the other side, in Levi's view, they are only a small problem. It's nothing more than a matter of big chest and no brains. But if you look at it yourself, it's just a trifle. At the moment, Levi slowly said, now do you understand what you're doing? Do you think you're like a hero in the theater, and everyone is happy with each other playing their own horn 620 colors? It's too good to think. Most of these people you deal with are difficult to mix even among ordinary people, people who fall to the bottom. In their logic, only the weak eat the strong. You are weak, they will rush up like a bent dog and crush you. Don't think too much with your mind. Starlight at the moment suddenly had tears in her eyes. Leviston felt bad. What was going on? Did he have to cry? Women are in trouble. At the moment, Natasha Romanoff felt slightly speechless, so she stepped forward and said, don't pay too much attention to his words. In many cases, you can just be yourself. Don't be too sad. Starlight at the moment said with a slight shudder, what you said is not wrong at all. It is my problem. If it is not my wrong concept. At the moment, Levi thought slightly, and at the moment he didn't know if he could get up at the moment. After hesitating for a moment, Levi slowly handed out a business card to Starlight. Bbook. He said, here is the contact information of a friend of mine. If you really plan to go the superhero road, you can call this phone to contact you. Definitely my best advice is that your well-nourished file-size sister doesn't have to come out and suffer. Why bother? Looking at your fine skin and tender flesh, your family must protect you very well, and I believe you will not have the need to show your face. Starlight nodded slightly. Levi's words made Starlight understand something slightly. Many of his problems were indeed his fault, but this situation was not unnecessary. For Starlight, in many cases, you need to deal with it yourself. I really need to be prepared for future planning. At this moment, Starlight slowly walked out and left here. At the moment, she didn't know if it was wrong or right for what she did. Levi looked at each other slowly and chuckled slightly. Natasha Romanoff looked at Levi with a little curiosity. For Levi to care about the other party so much, which made her a little curious. Is the other party very beautiful? But compared to his own, it is still far behind. At the moment, Natasha Romanoff's heart is slightly unhappy. Is it the hairy little girl of Levi's taste? At the moment, Natasha Romanoff pondered for a while, then finally continued, speaking of why do you value that little girl so much, I don't think there's anything wrong with her. I feel like an ordinary person, although I have a little extraordinary ability, but compared with ordinary people, I am not too strong. Natasha Romanoff, who said this, tried her best to pretend that her tone did not care, but Levi at the moment already vaguely felt the other party's vinegar. The other party's vinegar can be said to be irrepressible, but Levi's does not intend to pierce the other party's thoughts. For women, once they pick this point, the other party will be anxious with themselves. This will make Levi feel a little troubled at the moment. At the moment, Levi slowly said, the other party is a child who has not yet grown up, and if she holds this concept to become a vigilante, I am afraid that something will happen to her in the future, and it will be too late. Wake her up at this time, which is also good for her. Natasha Romanoff nodded, and she didn't feel that there was anything wrong with Levi's words. And nothing is said. At the moment, Levi thought slightly, for his plan, to contact physicists or mathematicians. If you want to do it, it is better to go through the official channel of SHIELD, although Professor X is not impossible. But it was still too much trouble, and it just so happened that Natasha Romanoff was by her side, so there was no need to miss it. At the moment, Levi slowly said, I have something I want to ask you, can I help? Natasha Romanoff felt a little joy in her heart. The other party actually wanted to find herself to help at this time, which is an extremely good thing for Natasha Romanoff at the moment. In many cases, it can be said that Tasha at the moment is a little difficult to control. Natasha Romanoff was slightly sure, and continued to speak. What's wrong? If anything, can I definitely help you? At the moment, Levi slowly said, I want you to help me connect with a few scholars in mathematics or physics, who are very famous in the industry. Natasha Romanoff was slightly stunned. What was the other party's point in looking for them? This is what to do. At the moment, Natasha Romanoff was also a little confused, but still said, if you say that, I do have some candidates here. Do you know Dr. Banner? Levi's heart trembled slightly. Dr. Banner, the shapeshifter of the Hulk, has he regained his ability during this period? Levi can be said to remember Dr. Banner's deeds very well. The other party can be said to have been unable to control their emotional state for a long time, and once their emotions are out of control, they will become Hulk. Chapter 305 Vector Manipulation. It wasn't until a period of time later, when he obtained the method of cultivating the soul in a cultivating place in a sect in Kunlun Mountain, that he obtained the current situation of being able to flexibly operate his transformation. Levi shook his head and continued, forget it, Dr. Banner, the others are still okay. At the moment, Natasha Romanoff was slightly puzzled. Is there any contradiction between Banner and Levi's? Why would he refuse? But since Levi did this, he really didn't have much need to stop it. At the moment, Natasha Romanoff nodded, then said, okay, I'll arrange it for you, and I'll contact Director Nick. Do you have any demands on them? At the moment, Levi thought slightly, continued to speak. I hope to arrange it as soon as possible, the sooner the better, and it is best to arrange a place for testing the instruments on site. Natasha Romanoff nodded slightly and began to record Levi's request on her phone, but the other party's request still made Natasha Romanoff a little puzzled. However, for this point, Natasha Romanoff does not plan to care too much. Nick Fury has explained, for Levi's approach, mainly to woo over. Since the goodwill was applied to his side this time, there really is not much need to deal with this issue here. Anyway, Director Nick's personal and financial and material resources don't have much to do with himself. At the moment, Natasha Romanoff frowned slightly. Although this matter has nothing to do with Natasha Romanoff, for the past few days, Levi's kindness to Susan, even a fool can see it. What kind of existence the other party is to Levi's. At the moment, Natasha Romanoff also thought slightly, and he really didn't need to care too much about each other now. But Natasha Romanoff just had some reluctance in his heart. It feels like one of my things has been taken away by someone else. Obviously, he knew Levi's earlier than the other party. At the moment, Natasha Romanoff looked at Levi's, her heart fluctuated, and at the moment she finally spoke. Speaking of which, Miss Susan, what do you think of her? Levi's heart was slightly cold, and at the moment, his heart was slightly cool, and he vaguely felt that something was wrong there, as if he answered incorrectly, he might incur a disaster on his face. This is a very bad thing for myself. If given the choice, Levi's is not going to answer well. Levi's heart moved slightly, and after swallowing his saliva, he said, this, Susan looks like a sister to me. It doesn't matter, Levi thought slightly, for Susan, it can be said to be his favorite character in his previous life. Therefore, after coming to this world, it can be said that he is extremely optimistic about each other. But Levi did not expect that Natasha Romanoff would express her dissatisfaction, which made Levi at the moment slightly puzzled. Will this Black Widow in front of you like him? This made Levi not without this idea, and for the other party, Natasha Romanoff can be said to be the same as Captain Steve, the same person who obtained the use of serum. Although it is not as strong as the captain, it is already extremely strong compared to ordinary people. In many cases, Nick trusts Natasha Romanoff more, and the other party will return the satisfactory result and the completion of the task. The man in front of him can be said to have experienced almost half a century. I have encountered more people and things than I have in 2 lifetimes. As for the possibility that the other person will like him, Levi believes that there will not be in the first place. This is something Levi can be sure of. Although with the character of the other party, sometimes there is a love scene, but Levi does not think that the other party likes him. At the moment, Levi thought slightly. At this moment, Natasha Romanoff slowly said, so it is so. It seems that my judgment is wrong. Levi's did not intend to delve into what the so-called error of judgment was in the other party's mouth, and for himself, this point did not have much meaning. At the moment, Levi took a deep breath and said, ask for flowers. Before this matter is over, I won't go to see her for the time being, and I will trouble you to take care of her during this time. Just try to complete the plan. If not, it's okay. Natasha Romanoff was slightly taken aback, and she was a little surprised by Levi's approach. For so many days, Levi's attention and affection for Susan can be said to be seen by almost everyone. Only Susan's file-size sister was still in the dark. But Levi's at the moment actually began to have other ideas. This surprised Natasha Romanoff slightly at the moment. After hesitating for a while, Natasha Romanoff, who was at the moment, finally continued. Do you really want to do this? I see you like her very much. At the moment, Levi shook his head slowly and continued. This matter is my more important matter at the moment. Susan will trouble you to tell her. I'll go to her again when this is over. At this moment, Natasha Romanoff nodded a little helplessly, although Levi's thoughts were still a little strange. But since the other party had made a decision, what she could do was choose to agree. At the moment, Natasha Romanoff said slowly, well, since you have also made a decision, then I will help you here. After the chat, Natasha Romanoff didn't have much mind in her heart to continue talking to Levi's, but chose to leave. It's getting late. Levi slowly looked up at the sky, and Levi was still extremely optimistic about the ability he had initially obtained. Vector manipulation. You can control all the heat energy you come into contact with, as long as it is through skin contact. For Levi's, the essence of this skill can be said to be no less than the phoenix force of this universe in terms of potential. Of the 4 basic forces of the universe, vector manipulation can master a considerable part of them. If it is studied and used for a long time, it may not be able to reach the level of the forbidden Mephisto. The origin of most of the power in the demon forbidden comes from those Mephisto. These Mephisto can be said to have almost reached the extreme of power in its own forbidden universe. If you give them more space, it may not be able to surpass the 8 gods of this universe. Chapter 306 The Visit of Polaris. At the moment, Levi took a deep breath. His opinion of the power he has mastered is still extremely good, and this power is not without further qualifications compared to Dark Phoenix. For yourself, if you do it, it will also greatly improve their current strength. That's pretty good for Levi's at the moment. At the moment, Levi's took a deep breath, and at the moment he was ready to go back. Levi sighed slightly back at the hotel. It wasn't that he didn't plan to have anything with Natasha Romanoff tonight, but the key was that someone had swept the interest of the 2 of them. This is the most critical issue at the moment. If it weren't for the fact that I didn't deal with these problems in the first place, it wouldn't have led to such a result. At the moment, Levi opened his eyes slightly and looked at the distant scenery of 7 or 80, and at this moment, he also thought slightly in his heart. After hesitating for a while, Levi's, who was at the moment, turned his head to look and found a familiar figure in front of him. It's Polaris. Levi's looked at each other with a smile and said, why are you here? Polaris. Polaris looked at Levi with a funny smile and said, I've missed you recently, so I'm here. Why do you have any ideas? At the moment, Levi's heart changed slightly, looking at each other. He seemed to think a little, but after hesitating for a while, Levi still said, "I don't know here. Is something wrong with the academy? Is that why you came to me?" At the moment, Polaris said with a slight helplessness, "What's wrong with the academy? You are already handling virtue very well. How can there be something to trouble you?" At the moment Levi nodded slightly, and continued to speak. "Since it's not a problem with the academy, then just continue to forget it." At the moment, Levi looked at Polaris in front of him with slight sadness. The other party's original fate was a child born in a world that lost the policeman and Magneto. In the new world, their only remaining children, Mutant, constantly struggled to survive, constantly tried to live. But there are still people dying all the time, and there are always people trying to stay alive, which is something that everyone does not want to see. At the moment, Levi pondered for a while, and at the moment he finally continued, "Speaking of which, I remembered the existence of one thing. Are you interested?" At the moment, Polaris was slightly stunned. Is this going to surprise himself? This came as a surprise to Polaris at the moment. She was also a little curious about what kind of surprise the other party would give herself. At the moment, Polaris looked at each other with a slight smile and said, "If it's something you like, I'm definitely here to love it, there's no doubt about it." At the moment, Levi pondered slightly in his heart for a while, and then continued to speak. "What do you think of the current situation of Mutant?" Polaris was slightly stunned, which surprised her at the moment. Originally, she thought that Levi was planning to talk to herself about something else, but now in this situation, it is clear that there is another purpose. After hesitating for a while, Polaris finally continued, "It's much better than before, and we can say that it was almost a very miserable situation. Now thanks to you, we can live brightly on Earth." At the moment, Levi showed a slight smile, and he still liked it when he was recognized by the other party. The other party can recognize him, which is extremely gratifying for Levi's at the moment. At the moment, Levi hesitated slightly, and then continued to speak. "It's not something I can do alone, it's something that's been done thanks to everyone, including Professor X." Levi slightly remembered the existence of one thing, that is the formation of the school city. Heiress to gradually screens out children with potential by disguising themselves as technological. In the end, it became what it is now, and from the perspective of the systematic ability training of the school city, Professor X's college is more like a big family with a big patriarch. It's actually nothing for Levi's at the moment. 0. I can be said to be a beneficiary of this system, otherwise I may have starved to death from the beginning, and I will not wait for the day of super ability awakening. But there is not much basis for this set after all. Levi's intends to use his ability as a cornerstone. A new system has been developed, through which everyone is transformed from the most ordinary person into a new super ability. At the moment, Levi sighed slightly, and then said, "Do you think mutant and ordinary people are of the same race?" Many people have doubts about this. At the moment, Polaris thought slightly. If she looked at it according to her thoughts, she and ordinary people could be said to be almost another race. A new race with X genes. This is the definition of technology, which is not a good thing for everyone. Plus the forces led by Magneto, promoting themselves as a new race far beyond human beings, to destroy human beings and become the new master of the Earth. This extremely stupid remark can be said to have caused them to incur many enemies. Even Professor X is also greatly related here. But his approach is not without reason. Magneto, including Professor X, many people, can be said to have grown up in human oppression, holding resentment against humans, which is also normal. But for Levi 2.4 at the moment, both of their ideas can be said to have a lot of problems. If there is a choice, Levi's is not going to choose either. At the moment, Polaris finally spoke. "I don't know, before I met you, I thought that all people mutant, and humans are not one kind of person, but another race." At the moment, Levi looked at each other with a smile, and at the moment he finally spoke. "I actually know this very well. There is a question I want to ask here. There is never any difference that you are born from your mother's belly in the same way as human beings. Your words, all your actions, show that you are the same human beings as humans." Chapter 307 The Fate of Mutant. Why would anyone think you're different? What do you think is the cause? At the moment, Levi's pondered for a moment and continued to look deeply at Polaris, wanting to know what the other person thought. For people like the other party who have rarely acquired knowledge since childhood, this answer is actually not very easy to get an answer. The other party, obstructing everything around him, will get the answer from a little narrow story he knows, but this answer is often wrong. For a farmer, the reason why it does not rain, they will think that God is dissatisfied with them, but for a person with knowledge who has grown up to modern times, this is actually very simple, nothing more than climate, humidity, and so on. With modern knowledge, you can find out, and even it is not impossible to find the answer to the solution. But for Polaris at the moment, the other party is difficult to get the corresponding answer, has lost the care of his parents since childhood, and because of Mutant's identity, he was mercilessly hunted, and from the beginning, he did not have the right to acquire his own knowledge, and only after a very late period of time, he had some help from the X teaching. But these helps, for them, is actually nothing, because a very simple problem, that is, for the mutant, the first and the most important thing is to teach them to control their ability. Only when they control their ability, there is a basic in human life. If you can't control your ability, everything else can be said to be empty talk. Once ability breaks out and hurts people, the corresponding police officers will detain them, and even the original identity will be deactivated. This is not a good thing for myself either. But that's the only thing they need to do. At the moment, Levi sighed slightly in his heart. If the priority of this point is in hand, then the only knowledge they can obtain is very simple, that is, common sense in human society. If it is an ordinary person, from childhood to adulthood, then he only needs to acquire a part of the knowledge and ability to understand society, and does not need to do these things at all. But mutant is different. They do not have such a generous time to have the luxury of choosing to obtain these unimportant things. But it is these unimportant things that form the cornerstone of human society, which is why they are excluded, suppressed. But this is not very important to Levi at the moment. If you don't come to this world, then the ending of Mutant can be said to be extremely tragic. Most of the world line ending is after the research of the inhibitory potion. All mutant gradually lost their ability. In the end, everyone was lost. This is a good thing for many people to acquire. But it is also a bad thing. Mutant would have had the opportunity to become a new member of this earth, but it was prevented. As the emergence of Mutant can be said to be extremely strange, it is reasonable to say that human society has evolved to the extreme, no need for new species selection. But they appeared on a very large scale, and if Levi's had seen it, the answer might have come out. That is the work of Mother Earth, which controlled the emergence of Mutant to meet a future crisis. In this crisis, perhaps the original human beings had a very high probability of dying, but in the accident, fate was changed. Originally, they were given super abilities. There is a real opportunity to become the new master after the crisis. But everything has changed. After Polaris pondered for a while, at the moment, she couldn't get the corresponding answer for a while, which was not a good thing for her, but at the moment, she also had nowhere to go. If there is a choice, then everything is fine, but this is the result, which makes her at the moment a little confused. After hesitating for a while, Polaris at the moment continued to speak tentatively. Is it because humans have suppressed our propaganda? At this moment, Levi shook his head. This answer did not satisfy him, but the result was still somewhat unexpected. If there is a choice, then everything is fine, but this is the result, which is a little difficult for him to accept. At the moment, Levi sighed slightly, and finally said, "You're doing well, and being able to see the first layer is already very good." Polaris smiled slightly, although she still had some ideas about Levi's opinion at the moment, but since this was the result, then it's still very good. At this moment, Polaris took a deep breath, looked at each other, and said, "Thank you. If you don't say it, maybe there is something wrong with your opinion." At the moment, Levi took a deep breath, then looked at each other, and at the moment his heart was slightly touched. For the person in front of him, he can be said to be extremely fond. If it is someone else, then he can say that it is impossible to have the patience to manage the other party. 347. The fate of the other party in the future has a relationship with half a dime to himself. I don't have any reason to care about the other party at all. At the moment, Levi took a deep breath, looked at each other, and finally said, "The problem is actually very simple, because there are barriers to information, and there is a gap between you and most ordinary people. Let's put it this way, it's a simple thing. In your eyes is the suppression of their own mutant by the evil official, but in the eyes of ordinary people, it is like seeing a terrorist attacking humanity again, which is the root of everything." At the moment, Polaris pondered slightly. After hesitating for a while, at the moment, she continued to speak. "So what's wrong? Where did you get the result?" After the two at the moment looked at each other slightly, they still didn't see the answer. At the moment, Levi said slightly, "It's actually quite simple. Someone is manipulating public opinion. Someone is deliberately provoking a fight between each other. Malice provokes anger, make people hostile to each other." Derived from the methods described in the original Bible, the language between people was confused and people lost themselves. Let them fight each other. This made it impossible for them to unite to build the Tower of Babel. Chapter 308 Completion of the Babel Tower. So people can't build Babel. This is the root of everything. At the moment, Levi looked at each other slightly, and finally said, "So you understand?" At the moment, Polaris pondered slightly. She still had some difficult to understand about her opinion. It stands to reason, why does the city have to do this? So much is logically unreasonable. Thinking of this, Polaris asked slightly, "So why did they do that? Does it make any sense to provoke malice against each other so that they are hostile to each other?" Levi's looked at each other with a slight look of pity. Polaris can be said to be an extremely intelligent person. The other party grew up in the worst environment at the beginning, but because of this, he has become the most powerful person today. This already shows the wisdom of the other party. Without Superman's wisdom, then the other party has no chance to grow. When he thought of this, Levi's heart changed slightly, and he could say that he attached great importance to his views and practices at the moment. Not only because of the beauty of the other party, but also because of the wisdom of the other party, which is the most attractive point for Levi's. At this moment, Levi also continued to speak, because hatred is the simplest meme and the original cause. Polaris shook her head, still a little confused about Levi's opinion at the moment. After hesitating for a while, Levi's, who was at the moment, continued to speak. Since you're not interested, then forget it. I'll talk to you about something else. What do you think? At the moment, Levi continued, if it were you, would you have a way to change the situation? At the moment, Polaris shook her head, and at Levi's question, her only feeling at the moment was very uncomfortable. She never thought that her fate was manipulated by someone, which made her a little strange and headache. If she had a choice, she would never choose to follow such a path. At the moment, Levi looked deeply at Polaris at the moment. This woman she likes so much. At the moment, Polaris was slightly embarrassed. Looking at Levi's look, at the moment, she was also a little confused. If it were herself, she might have followed the same path as her father, to kill, to take revenge, to make the people she hated so much to pay. This is the only thing she can do at the moment, and this is her original plan. If she had not met Levi's, it may be the result, even if the final result of such a path leads to the end of her own destruction. She also did not hesitate. Over the years, she has also lost a lot of her friends, and the blood debt must be paid in blood. This is different from Levi's theory and is the most basic route of human law, that is, revenge and revenge. The Huddle system based on blood and friendship has spawned a new system, that is, the system of revenge. This is the real reason why humans have survived to this day. But for Polaris at the moment, she is no longer going to do this. If it is a person who is not concerned about the world, she may do it. But she now has a person who is extremely concerned. The other party can be said to be the only concern of the current Polaris in the world. For the sake of the other party, she will not be willing to die. At the moment, Polaris pondered for a while, looked at Levi with some meaning, and finally continued to speak. It's actually very simple. The reason for the problem is actually very simple. It's about convincing humans that Mutant is the same human being. This is the root of everything, and this problem is the key to solving it. At the moment, Levi's face was overjoyed, and he was extremely surprised that Polaris could see the answer to this question so easily. Although the other party is inferior to others in many cases, he still sees the essence of the problem very sharply. If you are not there, with the ability and wisdom of the other party, you have a good chance to become the new generation leader of Mutant. This made Levi at the moment slightly happy. At the moment, Levi's heart changed slightly, and he said, mergers and acquisitions. You guessed right, this is really the key problem of everything, and as long as this problem is solved, everything can be said to be very simple. At the moment, Polaris' heart changed slightly, and she was extremely happy that her statement could be approved by Levi's. If it was anyone else, then she wouldn't care so much, but it was Levi's. This person is extremely important to her. At the moment, Levi mused slightly. Polaris Lorna. For Levi's, at the moment, her heart was slightly touched, and these touches, for her at the moment, are actually nothing. But this feeling can be said to be the first feeling she has. At the moment, Polaris continued, if it were us, how would we do it? How to do it? I also want to know the answer. Although Polaris had guessed the essence of the problem still gave her a headache about how to solve the key to the problem. Lorna measured slightly, looking at Levi at the moment, ready to wait for the other party's answer. Levi smiled slightly, looking at Polaris at the moment. At the moment he remembered his past life. At that time, he was also like this. His girlfriend sprinkled Zhaomos in front of him. But all this is gone. Everything about itself can be said to be gone. In this new world, in this mixed world, the only thing Levi's wants to do is one thing. That is to do your best to protect the people around you, which is the key to everything, and the only thing Levi wants to do. At the moment, Levi's heart changed slightly, and at the moment he continued to speak. The crux of the matter couldn't be simpler. I already have a plan. At the moment, Polaris' eyes lit up slightly, and she was also a little curious about the person in front of her who she valued the most. What kind of ending and answer is new this time? This ending may be beneficial for her, but there may also be a good chance that it is harmful, but this is no longer important to her at the moment. In many cases, if you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. And join my Patreon if you want to support me, link is in the description. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.